My life as Cyan Badley was satisfying until my 15th birthday. A carriage rides through the fields, carrying the ghosts of happier days, but I stare into the void knowing the truth. But I lost everything and anything because of this cup. Starting at rock bottom, a boy's legend begins. Cyan Badley grips the cup that defines his fate. It is a divine tool, yet it yields nothing but water. A girl waves and a small creature leaps with joy. With a letter in hand and a confident smile, he faces a new life in a barren territory. He decides to live freely despite his useless gift. Cyan Badley was born into the Badley family, one of the two upper nobles that support the kingdom. His older brother Alba warns him not to become a burden upon their family. His older sister Isla tells him to be sure to pray to the goddess to give him a good blessing. Alba is granted the power of fire by the goddess blessing, and Isla is granted the power of ice. But Cyan has put in an overwhelmingly greater amount of effort than these two, and he will not lose to them in disposition. The one to succeed the family will be him, the second son. Father calls out Cyan's name, the weight of authority heavy in his voice. Your engagement to an upper noble has been decided, he declares, his gaze locking onto his son. I have great expectations of you. Do you understand me? Cyan grips the letter that seals his fate. Father has succeeded in getting him engaged to his long-admired Helen. She was very delighted with her engagement to him. Helen, eldest daughter of one of the two upper nobles, the Pharisans. He has been promised a path to success. Status, a fiancé. And that's not all. A radiant hand descends from the heavens, bestowing an oracle upon Cyan, a divine gift reserved for heroes whose names are etched into history. He knows the stakes now. The coming-of-age ceremony today will decide his fate. He must not lose out to his brother or sister. Capability is the only currency that matters when inheriting the family. He prays to the goddess, hoping for a blessing that will surpass them and lead the country. But there is a catch. The divine gift that fell from the sky was nothing like the power he had begged for. It was something completely separated from the power he wanted. Cyan sighs, the sound heavy with defeat as he stares into the mundane cup in his hand. He looks at the vessel again, unable to look away from his useless blessing. A retainer notes that the young master is staring at the cup once more. Father urges him to drink some water instead of sighing. But the mention of the cup triggers a sudden, horrified realization. Engagement annulments. The confirmation shatters the room. Helen herself requested the annulment. Cyan's face freezes, eyes wide with horror as the truth settles in. Then the words cut deeper. Alba sneers first, mocking the divine gift he received. To think he was given such a pitiable blessing, they say. Helen fans herself, her voice dripping with disdain as she calls him a shame to the family. Rejoice. Alba sneers, announcing that he and the father have decided his fate. A territory awaits him, though it is nothing but barren land surrounded by sand, fitting for a man of his caliber. Helen adds that they will throw in some useless vassals as a parting gift. Then the knife twists deeper. Alba shouts that he is no longer a part of House Badley. The disownment hits Cyan like a physical blow, his eyes widening in horror as the family name is stripped away. 1 month into the exile, the carriage rattles across the barren land. Water pours into the cup, mundane and still. The vassals drink greedily, savoring the water. Thank you, Bakken, one exclaims. What a convenient vessel, another asks for seconds. Cyan watches them, the silence heavy. He looks down at the cup. He remembers what he was told. Divine tools are weapons or armor. The goddess bestowed a divine tool upon him, yet this cup is neither. He stares into the mundane vessel, wondering what on earth it is used for. It certainly isn't just a normal cup. The water sloshes. Cyan swigs. Magic flows in, water stores inside, and water flows out. A divine tool cup. But the water is neither hot nor cold. It is also not holy water nor medicine. It really is just normal water. I've tested it many times, but that is all that this divine tool does. This cup and Less than 10 people that were also labeled as worthless like me together. Bakken, you can see it now. I must. The carriage rattles across the barren expanse, heading toward a distant settlement rising from the sand. Cyan's face is tight, eyes sharp and fixed on the horizon. A caption declares the destination, the land abandoned by the kingdom, the desert city of Deseret. He speaks to his vassals, his voice cutting through the dry wind. Now I will tell you about our destination. The carriage moves on, the horses plodding through the dust. Oversee this land. The words hang heavy in the air as the group approaches the ruins of a forgotten city. Ensha, Cyan's exclusive teacher, opens a book to explain the history of Deseret. She reveals the town was originally built around an oasis in the center of the desert. However, a great drought 5 years ago dried up the spring and the crops failed. The people dug wells in vain, but the water is gone. Ensha leans in, her expression serious, and tells him the land is now infested with demon beasts. Cyan asks if the food supply is limited to wheat and produce, or if hunting is the only option. Ensha confirms the meat comes from hunting, but the threat of the beasts hangs heavy over the settlement. Ensha spots the shadow first, her voice cracking in shock. Demon beasts, Cyan looks past her, his eyes widening at the dark shapes looming in the distance. Even he hasn't seen creatures like this before, and the realization hits hard. They are this close. Ensha's fear instantly melts into obsession. She leans in, eyes gleaming behind her glasses, asking if she should go into more detail. It will take a bit of time, she warns, but she can't help the grin spreading across her face. Cyan tells her he will listen later. Ensha chuckles, noting he is completely into demons. Cyan's eyes remain fixed ahead, sharp and unyielding. The carriage rolls on through the dust. The structure groans and crumbles with a deafening rumble. Cyan flinches, startled by the sudden slam of debris. Ensha stares at the ruin, her voice trembling. Bertrel, she calls out. Is this really the Lord's mansion? The dilapidated walls loom over them, a shadow of their former glory. Bertrel steps forward, his face stern. Yes, Bakken, Ensha adjusts her glasses, her tone shifting to fact. This is Lord Alimoth's mansion. 10 years have passed since the last head Lord Alimoth died, and the mansion has been abandoned ever since. Cyan stares at the ruin, the weight of the discovery crushing him. How can House Badley own such a cursed place? Ensha explains the kingdom used them as a caretaker in name only, dumping the land on them after the Lord's death. Cyan sits on a rock, the pitiable reality settling in. What should he be doing in this land? Ensha steps forward, her tone shifting from fact to conviction. Even if it is barren, she believes he can take care of it. She may be out of hand, but if it is him, she believes he can do it. Cyan stands amidst his small retinue, the desert wind whipping around them as they face the ruins of Deseret. Ensha, Bertrel, and the others look to him with unwavering trust, their faith in his leadership absolute despite their dire situation. He watches them, the gratitude swelling in his chest as he realizes they followed him here without a single complaint or sign of resentment. That is how everyone is showing their faith in him. He grips the cup, feeling the weight of their loyalty settle on his shoulders, and knows he cannot let them down. I do not have any other path to take. I will do it, Cyan grips the cup, his voice cutting through the dry air. That's right, I will change this desert into a land of fertility. He raises his chin. I will make this into the No. 1 territory of the kingdom. Ensha's glasses glint as she offers her support. If it is you, you can do it, Bikama. Cyan smiles back, the weight of his vow settling on his shoulders. Even though I say that, the thought drifts in the silence, a whisper of doubt beneath the roar of ambition. Water splashes into the barrel as Cyan pours, the sound echoing in the dry air. Lugos the carpenter grins at the clear liquid. This fresh water. I will try asking around. Sailors and long-distance carriers would find it very convenient if they could get their hands on it. Cyan watches, the weight of his new reality pressing down. What should he do from now on? He turns the thought into action. Won't you consider asking Lugo-san to repair the stables? Delpon, the stableman, eyes light up. The horses could be a great source of labor. Okay, I will ask him to do it. Cyan nods, the resolve hardening in his chest. All right, I will. See how the town. Cyan strides toward the cluster of buildings, his silhouette framed against the dusty skyline. This is the heart of the town, the oasis. Ensha looks down, her expression dimming as she corrects him. It is just a sinkhole now, though. He walks deeper into the ruins, stepping near the jagged cracks in the earth. He is certain that because of the great drought 4 to 5 years ago, the water vanished. Ensha hesitates, her voice trembling. Zod. It used to be a place where there would be lively gathering every day. But her expression crumbles, eyes wide and glistening with unshed tears as the weight of the lost paradise settles over her. A villager steps forward, hope and confusion warring in her eyes. The newly relocated lord, could it be that Sir Noble is? A vassal. Cyan freezes, the word echoing in his mind. Vassal. Nearby, locals on a bench nod in agreement, murmuring that the notices said the lord would arrive soon. The water from the well is running out. The wheat and produce are also insufficient. This town is no longer. Everyone is worried every day and can't do anything about it. The woman clasps her hands, desperation tightening her voice. Would you be able to convey the plight we are currently facing to the Lord? Please. The weight of their dying town settles on his shoulders, the dry air suddenly feeling like a tomb. Please help. The town, the villager sobs, tears cutting through the dust on her cheeks. And all the people in the town. Her plea hangs heavy in the dry air, a desperate cry from the dying settlement. Cyan's hands clench tightly, gripping the fabric of his clothes as the shock rattles his resolve. He freezes, eyes widening as the weight of the town's survival crashes down on him. Ensha stands beside him, her expression unyielding. Your feelings have already been passed on. She cuts through his hesitation with the truth of their situation. Cyan doesn't look away. He stands on the jagged rocks, reaching out toward the woman in the distance, accepting the burden she placed upon him. Cyan stands atop the crumbling stone, the cup gripped tight in his hand. He shouts into the empty desert air, declaring himself the new lord of this land. Ensha stands behind him, shock freezing her posture. She stares in disbelief, her voice cracking as she calls out his name, Cyan Badley. Cyan tilts the cup and water pours out in a steady stream. It doesn't stop at the rim, the liquid surges downward, filling the dry sinkhole with a rising tide. The ground trembles as the water level climbs, swallowing the cracked earth. Ensha watches from the edge, her hands clasped together in awe. Amazing! She breathes, eyes wide at the impossible flow. Cyan stands waist-deep in the rising water, the cup still in hand. He looks around at the flooded crater, the reality of the task settling over him. Was there a need for me to start here? The water laps at his knees, a testament to the power he now holds, but the vastness of the desert remains. Cyan grips the cup, a realization settling over him. He wonders if this was the purpose of the gift all along, a tool meant specifically for this town and this day. It would have been nice to know that when he received his oracle. Who would have thought this cup would be of use to somebody? Outside, the commotion begins. A man shouts for others to come over, calling it crazy. Another asks what the fuss is about. The elder with the mustache notices the townspeople causing a stir. He turns to see what is happening. Down in the sinkhole, the crowd gathers. Someone points them toward the water. They can't believe their eyes. It's water. The elder stares in disbelief at the impossible sight. Ensha screams from the edge, panic cracking her voice as she spots Cyan standing alone in the flood. Why are you there by yourself? Cyan laughs in the water, the sound echoing over the rising tide, but the victory is short-lived. His head spins violently. Woozy, gripping the cup tight, he realizes the sheer volume of water is overwhelming his reserves. As expected, this much water is too much. His vision blurs at the edges, the magic draining faster than he anticipated. My vision is getting fuzzy. It is this. Magic. Deficiency. Ensha and Lugos scramble to the rim, shouting his name in unison. BOCCHAMA, a realization dawns on the crowd below. This is... Ensha gasps, her hand flying to her cheek in disbelief. The story of how I was ridiculed and expelled by the nobles. The main character is already dying from the first chapter. Pay attention to the next chapter. And use the power they called useless to save the world. The flood vanishes, replaced by an endless white void. Cyan lies sprawled on the ground, consciousness returning in a dizzying rush. His mind drifts through the haze, grasping for reality. This place is... Where am I? The silence stretches, heavy and empty, as Cyan struggles to piece together where he has landed. Cyan drifts through the haze of exhaustion, the memory of his collapse surfacing in fragments. First, the realization that his magic had finally run dry. Then the fall into the depths of the well. That's right. He wonders what happened to the girl. That girl. She jumped in, reaching out to save him. He turns to her, a sudden sharpness cutting through his daze. Did you notice it yet? Light floods the white void, revealing a figure standing tall amidst the radiance. A jeweled crown rests on her head, her long hair cascading like a river of silk down her back. She wears flowing robes that ripple in an unseen breeze, her expression serene as a gentle smile softens the tension in the air. Cyan lifts his eyes from the ground, his vision still hazy from the magic drain. The goddess looks down upon him, waiting in the silence of this strange place. It's been a while, Cyan badly. The goddess's voice cuts through the white void, familiar and commanding. Recognition strikes Cyan like lightning. There's no doubt. That voice. This old lady. He scrambles to his knees, bowing deeply in the sacred space. It's an honor to meet you again, Goddess Sama. The goddess offers a serene smile, her presence radiating calm. Please raise your head. Now, no need to be so polite. She steps closer, her gaze piercing through his exhaustion. I've come to tell you the true power behind the divine tool that I gave you. Cyan's breath hitches, hope flaring in his chest. It's true power. Did I get that right? Cyan demands confirmation, his voice trembling with disbelief. Is this vessel merely a cup or something far greater? The goddess answers immediately, her tone leaving no room for doubt. It is the Holy Grail. The name crashes into Cyan's mind, a thunderclap of recognition. Holy Grails. But the revelation comes with a heavy caveat. The goddess explains that the artifact's true strength has faded, lost to time or neglect. She stands radiant in the white void, her presence a beacon of authority. She commands him to press on, to use the Grail to aid the suffering. There is a promise hidden in the instruction. As he helps others, the power will slowly return to him. Cyan asks what the Holy Grail's original power truly was. The goddess answers, then pauses, tapping her chin as she repeats the word, creation. She lets it hang in the silence, before suddenly declaring it's time for him to wake up. Cyan balks, shouting that the answer is too half-baked, but his strength is gone. He stumbles, losing consciousness again. As he collapses onto the white ground, his mind races with one final question. What kind of power does the Holy Grail truly hold? The goddess's hand descends into the white void, her voice cutting through the silence. Cyan, remember this, she introduces the system. The skill board, the explanation unfolds. There is where you will learn a bit of the power of the Holy Grail. Cyan's eyes are closed, his consciousness slipping away as the words settle. Making people happy and earning their trust, that is the condition. That is the source of power of the Holy Grail. The truth lands, final and absolute, before he fades completely. The goddess's voice echoes through the white void, warm and commanding. I'm counting on you, Cyan. She declares the condition met, and the Holy Grail's power begins to partially release. Cyan's eyes snap wide, sweat beating on his face as the miracle takes hold. Why, young master? The shout cracks through the air, followed immediately by You're awake. Cyan jolts, eyes wide and mouth open as the white void vanishes. The crowd surges with relief, voices rising in a chorus of thank goodness. As they lean over the beds, he rubs the back of his head, dazed, the memory of the goddess still clinging to his mind. This is... The thought drifts unspoken as he forces himself to sit up, the weight of the room pressing back in. I was so afraid that you wouldn't wake up. The words crack through the silence, heavy with relief. Cyan waves it off from his bed, insisting he only needed a rest after exhausting his magic. A girl beside him dissolves into tears and laughter, crying out his name in pure emotion. Ensha lines in, her glasses glinting, her voice trembling with the weight of the danger. Running out of magic power is deadly, she warns, it's the worst thing that could happen. Please don't do it again. Cyan nods slowly, the weight of her words settling in. I understand. Ensha stands back, arms crossed, her expression stern but her eyes soft with relief. I've been nagging at you to not do this for over a year. Ensha screams, her voice cracking with frustration. Never again. For the rest of your life. Don't forget, Cyan blinks, the memory surfacing through the haze. Though, I remember a year ago. I ran out of magic power and collapsed. Ensha's gaze drifts back to that terrifying day. That's when she met Goddess Sama for the first time and received her oracle. Could it be that you meet Goddess Sama when you're on the brink of death? A spark ignites in Ensha's mind. Then I can just exhaust my magic power again and see Goddess Sama to ask her about the Holy Grail. But the thought curdles. On second thought, maybe I shouldn't. She straightens her posture, masking the chaos. Well then, Rapam, please take care of young master. Steam rises as Rapam pours tea, the maid standing ready in the room. Cyan, eyes clearing from the haze, asks softly, Rapam, may I have a cup of tea? The maid nods, bowing slightly. Certainly, the cup fills with dark liquid. Rapam, his top-notch maid, stands ready. He looks at the scene before him, the warmth of the moment hitting him. Oh, this is a dream. No, this is way too vivid to be one, his thoughts trail off. Which means... Cyan takes a sip of the tea Rapam served, the warmth spreading through him as he declares it delicious. Ensha, having tasted it as well, tells Rapam that the drink is invigorating her entire body. She turns to Cyan with a knowing look, telling him he will discover the true power of the Holy Grail. The words pull his mind back to the white void, where the goddess had commanded him to remember. He wonders aloud what she meant by the skill board, exhaling a breath of contemplation as the realization settles. The skill board materializes in the air, glowing with a soft, ethereal light. A single orb hovers within the frame, marked clearly with the kanji for water. Cyan's eyes widen, sweat dripping down his temple as he processes the sudden appearance. Ensha points upward, her voice rising in a startled cry. Yuwa, she exclaims, then follows with, what's this? The boy sits frozen on the floor, the weight of the new power settling over him. Ensha spots the glowing orb hovering in the air and gasps, asking what's wrong and pointing at the strange thing. Cyan freezes, sweat dripping down his face as a terrifying realization hits him. She can't see it. Only he cans. He quickly waves it off, stammering that it was nothing, but Ensha's eyes narrow as she pieces it together. The true power of the Holy Grail. What is this? The orb vanishes, replaced instantly by the gleaming cup materializing in his hand. Holy Grails. Ensha stares wide-eyed and asks if he's that surprised. Cyan grips the vessel, the weight of the miracle settling in his palm. The cup. He can freely summon and desummon it whenever he wants. Ensha points at the glowing orb, urging Cyan to test the skill board. Let's try touching it. A finger presses against the floating kanji for water, but the effect is underwhelming, just a shift in brightness. It feels too simple. There has to be more to it than that. The thought snaps into a lightning strike as Cyan grips the cup tight. Can I operate the Holy Grail using this? The realization hits him like a physical blow, his eyes wide with shock, while Ensha watches from the bedside, the silence stretching heavy between them. Ensha gasps, her eyes wide with shock as the impossible reality settles in. Cyan grips the vessel, his voice trembling as he calls out to the maid. In the cup. Rapam, he leans forward, desperation and hope warring in his tone. Could you try pouring some tea inside it? Rapam hesitates, the teapot in her hand trembling slightly. Inside your divine tool, she asks, her voice barely a whisper. Certainly, she agrees, pouring the dark liquid into the empty vessel. The tea flows in, defying the rules of the world, filling the cup that was supposed to be useless. Cyan's breath hitches, eyes wide as the magical interface flickers beside him. The glowing orb shifts, the kanji changing from water to black tea. A sharp cry tears through the room, a voice screaming his name in panic. The orb pulses with blinding light, the kanji settling into the characters for black tea. Cyan grips the cup in his lap, eyes wide and unblinking, the shock of the miracle grounding him in the bed. The realization crashes through his mind, heavy and final. So this is the cups. No. So this is the power of the Holy Grail. Encha's face is trapped inside the cup, her eyes wide with the realization. Don't tell me, the butler bows, cutting through the moment. Sorry to interrupt, young master. He steps back into the room, delivering news that hangs heavy in the air. There are quite a few people gathered in front of the Lord's mansion. He adds that everyone has been worried about young master for some time now. Encha blinks, processing the crowd. Is that so? She snaps her attention back to Cyan, her voice brightening. All right. What about your health? Cyan waves off the concern, standing tall despite the exhaustion. I'm fine. Exhaustion of magic power is something that can be quickly recovered from, you know. He points a finger, demanding action. Get my formal attire ready. Encha grins, a spark of mischief lighting her eyes. I've got a good idea. Father's monocle gleams as he squints at the boy's expression. What's up with that face? He lines in, voice dry with experience. Whenever a young man gets a good idea, it always turns out to be a bad idea. Encha throws her hands up, protesting the gloom. Aw, come on, the chef steps forward, breaking the tension. Lugos and Povel are here. Rapam as well, please follow me. The crowd shifts, anticipation rising. Outside, the mansion stands ready. Cyan stands tall, relief washing over him. I'm done with what you wanted. Encha nods, gesturing to the waiting clothes. Your formal attire is ready as well. Another servant chimes in. Same here, Cyan beams, gratitude softening his features. Thank you. Encha holds out a tray with a single cup, her hands steady. She then shifts to holding a large umbrella or cloth over Cyan, shielding him. Outside the mansion, Cyan stands tall in his formal attire, the weight of the moment pressing on him. He clears his throat, the sound echoing slightly. Once again, I am the new lord of this land, Cyan Badley. He raises the cup, offering a toast to the people gathered below. I hope you all enjoy this tea ceremony as an apology for worrying you all and also to familiarize yourselves with me. Beneath the words, a quiet doubt lingers, easier said than done, but the crowd waits, eyes fixed on the new lord. Relief floods the courtyard as the people taste the tea. But this new lord is amazing, Tilda, someone sighs, followed by, I'm so glad he's doing well, Tilda. Others marvel that this is the same tea that nobles drink, Tilda, their spirits lifted after the epidemic. It's a small thing, but it's a big deal, someone insists, while another wonders if the water drought is finally over. Encha watches from the side, thinking to herself that calling it a small thing is a bit. The new lord really can give us more water, a man declares, confirming rumors. So what Batara said was true, the name strikes Cyan like a stone. He blinks, the word hanging in the air. Batara, he whispers, his mind racing. Could they be talking about that girl? Lugos hefts a large table over his shoulder with a cheerful grin, declaring it no problem at all. Encha thanks him, marveling at how quickly he managed to set everything up. Meanwhile, Povel is busy in the kitchen, and Cyan thanks him for baking the finest tea cakes. The chef blushes at the praise, prompting Cyan to tease that he's getting flustered. Rapam stands by, having prepared the tables, and Cyan offers his gratitude to her as well. Encha watches the scene, her eyes widening as she murmurs, young master. Rapam brings the cup to her lips, her expression shifting from caution to surprise. She swallows, then offers a humble apology. Excuse my rudeness, but I couldn't help it and tasted the tea. It definitely tastes the same as the blend of tea that I always make. Encha's smile breaks the tension, her voice bright with confirmation. You were right, young masters. The power of your divine tool is the real deal, isn't it? The vessel hums with light as Cyan's mind races. That's right. After pouring Rapam's tea inside, the magic holds. Like with water, he can now produce Rapam's tea as much as he wants, provided he has the magic power to fuel it. And it seems he can switch between the two liquids by using the skill board. The Holy Grail isn't just a vessel, it's a wellspring of infinite sustenance. The true power of the Holy Grail is probably the ability to use magic power to duplicate any substance that was put inside. Rapam realizes this means she might not be necessary to make tea for young master anymore. Cyan cuts through her doubt instantly, shouting that she is wrong in the slightest. She hesitates, unsure why, but he continues. He explains that the tea she makes is definitely not the same as the tea that comes from his Holy Grail. Cyan's eyes soften as he declares that Rapam's tea is the only one he will ever drink. He asks her to keep making it for him, his voice warm and sincere. Rapam blushes, her head bowing as she promises to do her best. Cyan laughs, shaking his head as he insists her blend is so delicious that even his divine tool cannot compare. Rapam covers her face, flustered by the praise. Suddenly, Cyan's gaze shifts past her. He spots a figure peeking from behind a brick wall on the far side. Ensha freezes, caught in the act. Cyan's eyes widen, shock rippling across his face as he realizes he's been watched. Batura peeks out from behind the brick wall, eyes wide with surprise. Cyan strides forward, reaching out to her with a knowing smile. "You must be Batura." He calls out, confirming her identity. He notes she has been absent this whole time, his tone warm rather than accusatory. Batura stammers, bowing her head in shock. "Ems, my lord. Are you doing well?" She asks, her voice trembling. Cyan reassures her instantly, flashing a confident grin. "As you can see, I'm totally fine," he declares. Batura relaxes, relief washing over her face as she thanks him for helping her back there. Ensha grabs Cyan by the shoulder, her face alight with determination as she declares she's throwing a tea ceremony to thank and greet everyone. A tray of steaming tea and sweet cookies waits in the center, the scent of warmth filling the air. She pours the liquid from a pitcher, her hands steady despite the surprise in her eyes, then lifts the cup to her lips. The taste is perfect, her eyes sparkling as she exclaims how delicious it is, while Cyan smiles beside her, agreeing that it truly is. Batura wipes a tear from her cheek, relief flooding her expression. Thank goodness, she admits the terror she felt, believing the Lord would have died because of her. She recalls the desperate moment, her hands gripping his arm as she blames herself for exhausting his magic. Cyan holds her steady, his voice cutting through her guilt. "Why, you weren't at fault for anything." Back in the present, Batura freezes, her eyes widening in shock as she stares at him. That or the crowd watches silently, the weight of the moment hanging heavy in the air. Young Master is so quick on the uptake. You're a man, young master." Ensha snaps, her composure breaking under the praise. "Stop teasing me." The lighthearted teasing fades as Cyan turns his gaze to the horizon. Thanks to this tea ceremony, I was able to familiarize myself with the natives of Deseret better. He vows to himself, "I will continue working hard to enrich my territory and the lives of my people." To fulfill that promise, he knows the path ahead. In order to do that, I'll need to study more about my Holy Grail. Under a heavy sky, the Badley mansion looms, its windows dark and silent. Deep below in the basement of the Lord's mansion, the air turns cold. Cyan descends the stone steps, his boots echoing in the gloom. "It's still dark and eerie down here," he murmurs, the shadows stretching long around him. He pauses at a doorway, peering cautiously around the frame. A faint creak sounds behind him. "Doctor, are you there?" he calls out, his voice trembling slightly in the silence. Cyan descends into the gloom of the basement, the air heavy with dust and secrets. Ensha stands amidst the shelves, her eyes scanning the rows of glass jars filled with withered specimens. She whispers to herself, recognizing these as the experiments abandoned by the previous lord. Her gaze lingers on a dried plant in a jar before she turns sharply. "There you are, doctor," she calls out, her voice cutting through the silence. Medea steps from the shadows, a flask in hand, her eyes gleaming with a dangerous curiosity. "You're my next guinea pig, tilde," she purrs, the threat hanging heavy in the damp air. Cyan freezes, eyes widening in recognition as he stammers, It's me, the former Badley family doctor smiles, holding up a jar marked with a heart. She tilts her head, asking what he intends to request from her, then teases him about testing a love potion. She denies it immediately, her tone shifting to seriousness. She tells him she hopes he can help her solve the epidemic that's afflicting the city. Encha's eyes widen as the word epidemic escapes her lips, the shock of Medea's revelation hanging heavy in the air. A few hours earlier, the courtyard buzzed with the aftermath of the tea ceremony, the air thick with the scent of sweet tea and relief. Villagers praised the Lord's idea, calling it a pretty good one as they cleared away the debris. Cyan winks, basking in the praise, while Batara looks on with a mix of surprise and admiration. Cyan turns to Batara, thanking her for the day, but she stammers out an apology for arriving late to the ceremony. The crowd's warmth fades into a quiet moment between them as Cyan pauses, his mind racing with a thought he cannot quite voice yet. Well, the truth is, the weight of the epidemic presses down on him, even as the memory of the tea ceremony lingers. A young villager named Batara has a mother bedridden by the epidemic, Cyan explains, sliding a note across the table. The woman can't leave her home, confined by the sickness. He asks for Medea's advice, the new lord turning to the former family doctor for help. Medea takes the paper, scanning the symptoms with a focused gaze. Let's see, she murmurs, then hums thoughtfully. She turns to the shelves behind her, books tumbling and rattling as she digs through the stacks. A moment later, she places a small bottle on the table with a soft clink. Here you go. Medea sets the bottle down on the table. That's it, Cyan blinks, confused. That's what, she points to the glass. That's the medicine for the disease. Cyan leans over the table, eyes wide. You were able to get it from just the information on that little slip of paper. Medea crosses her arms, smug. Of course. Who do you think I am? Cyan presses, desperation creeping into his voice. Are you positive that this medicine will work? Medea looks away, her confidence waver. Well, it's just that, Cyan's face tightens. There's still a bit of a problem. That's the only bottle. Medea's voice offers no comfort, just a cold fact. She admits she doesn't have the ingredients to make any more. The hope vanishes, which means that we can only save one person. Cyan freezes, the weight of the decision pressing against his chest. Outside, the mansion looms under a gray sky, the windows dark and silent, while the single cure sits on the table, holding the fate of a life in its glass. Jays. The tall figure in the hood and mask grumbles, pulling the fabric tighter against the glare. I don't know what goes on in that head of yours. The companion beside him scoffs, crossing his arms. That's my line. What's with that strange getup? The hooded traveler sighs, trudging through the dust. I hate this sunlight. You never took a step out of the carriage, did you? Have you thought about making some sunscreen lotion? I'll think about it. How long are we gonna keep walking? The traveler complains, his patience wearing thin. It's right up ahead. A knock echoes against the wooden door of the small house ahead. Batara cracks the door open, peering into the dark hallway with a wary who's there. The figure inside jumps, a startled wah, escaping his lips as water splashes everywhere. If you needed water, then you could have just told me, Batara says, thinking the stranger is just thirsty. I forgot, the hooded man replies, crouching on the floor. Encha steps forward, glasses gleaming. This person, despite her appearance, is a doctor. Cyan holds up the small bottle. Batara. Look, it's medicine for your mother. Recognition hits like a thunderclap. Lord Sama. The diagnosis lands with finality, Urala disease. Encha stands over the sick woman, her glasses reflecting the dim light, her expression grim but resolute. She reaches out, demanding the medicine from Cyan, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. The young lord doesn't hesitate, his hand already moving to offer the cure. He declares this is why he came, his face set with determination. Batara watches, her eyes wide with disbelief and emotion. She asks if he is truly sure about this, her voice trembling. The noble before her is giving up his only chance, his only resource for the sake of a commoner. Tears well in her eyes as she realizes the depth of his sacrifice, the weight of his kindness pressing against her heart. She whispers that a noble like him shouldn't go this far, her voice breaking as she acknowledges the impossible choice he has made for her mother's sake. The door creaks open and the father steps aside, gesturing for them to enter with a shaky hand. Inside, the sick woman lies in bed, her breathing steady and peaceful after the ordeal. Ensha kneels by the bedside, her voice bright with relief as she tells Batara that she looks much better now. She reassures the girl that her mother is all right. Batara's face lights up, her hands clasped together in gratitude. She turns to her mother, beaming with joy that the crisis has passed. The father stands by the door, bowing slightly to the young lord and his companion. He stammers out his thanks, acknowledging them as guests who have brought salvation to their home. Whispers of doubt ripple through the gathered crowd, born of old fears that nobles only harm commoners. A villager stares in disbelief, wondering if the Lord truly meant to help them at all. Then a voice cuts through the skepticism. Batara beams with radiant relief, announcing that her mother is finally feeling better. Medea peeks out from behind her, smugly claiming credit for the cure. The mood shatters into pure gratitude as the villagers turn to Cyan, shouting that thanks to him, the sickness is gone. They can't thank him enough. Cyan stands frozen, the weight of their sudden adoration leaving him stunned and breathless. The kingdom and the aristocrats have abandoned Deseret for more than a decade, a place where not even a single noble dared to visit. The isolation bred deep suspicion, and the natives here grew wary of the aristocrats. Cyan stands in the quiet town, the weight of this history pressing on him as he realizes the source of the villagers' doubt. A young subordinate in uniform steps forward, steel clinking as he readies himself and mutters, "Here we go." The tension of the past hangs heavy in the air, a shadow cast by the very title of the man standing before them. "For the epidemic, I've prepared lots of medicine for the Urala disease," Cyan bellows, lifting a vial into the air as if it were a trophy. He commands the crowd to take however much they need. Ensha glances at her clipboard, asking if he needs a checkup himself. The villagers freeze, whispers of disbelief rippling through them. "Medicine, we can take it. You're kidding, right?" Ensha shakes her head, muttering good grief that he managed to prepare so many vials of such precious medicine. Cyan winks, assuring them they're free to take whatever they need with no need to hold back. A villager stammers out that he's a great lord, while another gasps in shock at the sheer generosity. Cyan commands the crowd to line up in an orderly fashion. He lifts a small jar, telling them grimly that only one person can be saved and to think carefully. Ensha gasps, then screams as he pours the medicine, asking what the hell he is doing. Cyan smiles, insisting to the villagers that this is the only vial they have. "All right." "It worked," Medea exclaims, the tension in her shoulders finally snapping. The glowing orb pulses before her, the ingredients of seed oil and milk swirling into clarity. It is the cure, the medicine for the Urala disease. The impossible formula has finally taken shape. Ensha's eyes widen as she realizes what just happened. "Did you just state the name of the disease?" she asks, pointing at the cup in Cyan's hand. "It's called a skill board." "Right here," she explains, the realization hitting her hard. She steps closer, her voice dropping to a worried whisper. "Young master," a guard in his helmet shouts, "stop joking around." But Ensha just sighs, her expression darkening. "I wonder if I can fix that brain of yours." Cyan ignores the tension, holding the cup up with a confident grin. "I figured since it was a liquid it would be fine to pour inside the cup," he declares. "I experimented with it a little bit before coming here." Cyan lays bare the cup's mechanics, explaining that solids fail to react while liquid ingredients found in the kitchen work perfectly. He demonstrates by pouring liquid into the vessel, watching as the name displays on the skill board, duplicatable whenever he supplies magic power. Ensha's hope wavers as she realizes the catch immediately, muttering that they can't just duplicate gold coins to solve their troubles. She reaches for a rare tool, a magic tool appraisal lens once mass-produced by a noble gifted by a goddess. The lens glows with appraisal magic as she scans the item, searching through her mind for the specific data she needs. Ensha peers through her lens, confirming without a shadow of a doubt that the liquid inside is an exact replica of the Urala disease medicine. When Cyan asks if that expensive tool is an appraisal lens, she nods, her eyes gleaming as she realizes the cup's true power is the real deal. Suddenly, her greed takes over. She shouts that they should make a fortune off of this. Cyan immediately shuts her down with a firm "no way." Ensha doesn't back down, grabbing his arm and calling him a softie, demanding they at least sell half the stock. When Cyan tries to leave, insisting they get going, Ensha yells after him, complaining that he's dragging her along too. Cyan passes the vial to the next villager, the line of grateful faces stretching into the distance. A woman near the door shouts out, eager to lend a hand, "I'll help out as well." The crowd swells with gratitude, the air thick with relief. But the attention shifts to the girl standing beside Ensha. She stares at the Lord with wide eyes, whispering, "How amazing!" Ensha frowns, glancing at her companion. What do you mean?" The girl smiles, her voice bright and clear. "I'm talking about you, my lord." Cyan freezes, caught off guard by the direct praise, his usual confidence faltering under the weight of their genuine admiration. Batara's eyes crinkle with a warmth that cuts through the town's lingering suspicion. "You were willing to help us commoners," she whispers, her voice thick with emotion. "Even going as far as using the power that the goddess bestowed upon you, everyone. Me included." She opens her eyes, locking her gaze onto the young lord. "We all had the wrong idea about the nobility." Cyan stands frozen, his usual confidence faltering under the weight of her sincerity. The confession hangs in the air, a quiet thunderclap that rewrites everything he thought he knew about this place. Deep in the basement of the manor, Ensha and Cyan crouch over trays of struggling plants. "There's an experimental laboratory here," she reveals, where the previous lord tried desperately to grow crops suited for this harsh climate. He was genuinely trying to rebuild this city, but that was more than 10 years ago. Ensha sighs that it's not surprising the general opinion about aristocrats has changed since then. But Cyan doesn't let the past define the present. He smiles, eyes bright with conviction, and declares that he sincerely believes the powers nobles get from the goddess are supposed to be used to protect their people. He speaks of a noble who has that way of thinking. Batara whispers from the shadows, her hooded figure turning toward him. "I think my lord is the only one who would think of it that way. Come to think of it, my brother and sister." "Listen, Cyan." Alba's voice cuts through the memory, arms crossed tight against his chest. Beside him, Isla leans in, her tone dripping with cold certainty. "The blessings bestowed to us by the goddess are powers that only we, the nobility, are granted. This blessing is our strength. Commoners who can't even receive the divine blessing are not to be bothered with. That's the line of thought that all nobles are taught and raised by. Even so, His eyes narrow, the memory of the statue burning brighter than their logic. "I swore to Goddess Sama's statue at the coming-of-age ceremony that I would use the divine power that I was given to protect my people. And also, 4 years ago at the Badley residence, a young Cyan Badley, only 11 years old, swings his sword with frantic energy in the courtyard. A woman in armor watches him, her expression unreadable beneath her hood, and remarks that he is pretty energetic today. The boy grins, sweat beading on his forehead, fueled by the memory of a master who convinced him to train so hard. The weight of that past conviction hangs heavy on the boy's shoulders as he practices, unaware of the path that would eventually lead him to stand before his siblings and the goddess today. Young Cyan shouts, sword raised high. Miss Suspicious is back again. The woman in armor laughs, hands on her hips. How rude. What about me is suspicious, huh? She steps closer, her voice softening. I just stopped by to check on you. The only person that's worth visiting in this house is you, young master. Cyan's face lights up, pride swelling in his chest. That's right. Because I'm Cyan Badley. He grips his sword tighter, eyes blazing with determination. I'm gonna work my butt off to become a nobleman. The woman's eyes crinkle in a smile hidden beneath her hood. The woman in armor steps in, her voice cutting through the boy's excitement. Boy, that's a great mindset. It's admirable, but being a great nobleman is not up for you to decide. She leans down, her hooded face close to his. It's up to your people. Cyan looks up, eyes wide, repeating the lesson back to her. Think that everything you do is for the people. The woman nods, her words landing with weight. The power and title of nobles. That is the duty of those with power. The boy stands frozen, the realization settling deep in his chest. The woman in armor throws her head back, laughter ringing out as she admits the truth was just hearsay anyway. Beside her, young Cyan pleads, cheeks flushed, begging to call her master. She dismisses him with a wave, declaring he can call her whatever he wants before sprinting away into the distance. Cyan scrambles after her, shouting for her to stay and teach him more. Years later, the memory lingers in Cyan's mind. He credits her spirited influence for keeping his own outlook bright, even as he admits she remained a complete enigma. His fingers tighten around a small glass bottle, the vessel that now holds the cure for the Urala disease. Cyan throws his head back, eyes blazing with a fire that burns through the noise of the crowd. He vows to continue using his power for the people, promising with every fiber of his being that he will do his best to change everyone's perception of the nobility. Ensha watches him with a soft, closed-eyed smile, amused by his fervor. Then reality crashes back in as she yells for him to stop spacing out. She demands he help her out over here, waving a hand toward the surging mass of villagers. The crowd surges forward, a sea of faces reaching out, and she marvels at the sheer madness of the crowd. Young master, the shout tears through the air, followed by a stammering apology from someone caught in the crush. Although, citizens, I'm sorry, but they really wanted to thank you directly. Cyan stands frozen, sweat beading on his forehead as the sheer volume of gratitude threatens to swallow him whole. At the manor gates, the scene erupts into motion. A sea of villagers surges forward, speed lines blurring the world around them. Thank you, my lord, they cry out in unison. Cyan raises a hand, trying to hold back the tide of affection. I got it, he shouts, voice cracking. I got it, so please. The town celebrates the epidemic's end, a brilliant solution thanks to Cyan's kindness, as the people realize the noble who saved them is standing right before them. Cyan jolts awake, the groggy murmur of his sleep still hanging in the air. A rhythmic thudding vibrates through the room, pulling him from his bed. He sits up, squinting into the light, and asks what's causing the racket. The maid Rapam stands waiting by his side, her expression calm. She explains that the noise is simply the mansion undergoing repairs. Cyan's eyes widen in surprise, realizing she's been there all along. He stammers, asking when she arrived, caught off guard by her quiet presence. Cyan lets out a quiet thought, realizing Rapam knows him too well. Rapam is too good at reading my mind. Good morning, young master, Rapam's voice greets him, offering a steaming cup. I've brewed you your morning tea. It's fresh, thank you, I was a little bit parched. Cyan takes the cup, relief washing over him. He sips and his eyes widen. Though, it's tasty, I'm glad it suits your palate. Rapam stands nearby, hands clasped. Cyan drinks again, the warmth spreading through him. Rapam watches with a soft, knowing smile. Cyan takes a sip of the tea, warmth settling deep in his chest. Rapam notices the hesitation and asks if something is wrong. Cyan stammers a denial, but internally admits the drink feels like his mother is watching over him. Even so, Rapam says, shifting the mood, Lugos has been working hard this morning. Looking out the window, she adds that the city carpenters are cooperating with them too. Cyan's eyes widen in shock, exclaiming if they are really helping. A group of rough-looking men arrives at the estate, their footsteps echoing against the stone. One of them scans the building, eyes wide. Is this the place? The Lord's mansion. Before they can settle in, a guard inside the gate points a finger, shouting, "Who the hell are you guys?" "Are you bandits?" The carpenters immediately protest, "Hey, hey. That's a terrible thing to call us." Leading the charge, a muscular man hoists a heavy wooden beam onto his shoulder, grinning through the tension. "We're the carpenters of Dezurat," he bellows. "We're here to help you fix up the mansion." Rapam stands beside Cyan on the veranda, marveling at how the lead carpenter's family is recovering thanks to the medicine distributed by the young lord. Cyan sits quietly, realizing that the man outside was part of the grateful crowd yesterday. He murmurs that it makes sense, the realization settling in. Under a sky where birds soar above the estate, Cyan approaches the lead carpenter, who is hard at work on the mansion repairs. He greets the man, commenting on his effort, and the carpenter beams, calling out to his lord. Before Cyan can respond, the carpenter pulls him into a crushing embrace. He thanks him profusely for yesterday, the weight of his gratitude pressing against Cyan's chest as the boy accepts the thanks with a smile. Tears stream down the carpenter's face as he clutches Cyan. "My lord, you helped cure my daughter's illness. You saved her life. I can't help but to return the favor." He wonders if this is what it's like to have a strong bond with your family, realizing it's a lot different compared to the Badley household. He breaks the tension with a warm command, telling the workers they must be very tired after working all morning. He calls out to Rapam and Bertrel, ordering them to prepare some tea for everyone. Bertrel presents the tea with a flourish, offering it up with a cheerful "ta-da." Rapam blinks in surprise, asking if it's already prepared so soon. Cyan watches them, the warmth of their care settling in his chest. They're so dependable, he thinks, they can definitely read his mind. "Thank you, both of you." Rapam and Bertrel stand together, bowing slightly. Bertrel tells Cyan it is their duty to serve him as best they can, and Rapam adds that it's because they are his loyal servants. Cyan stares back at them, eyes wide and soft. "My loyal servants, huh? I guess that's true. After all, I've come this far because you all believed in me this whole time." Laughter rings out across the courtyard as teacups clink in the sun. The lead carpenter grins, raising his cup to the group while Rapam pours with a gentle smile. The distance between noble and servant dissolves into something warmer. Cyan looks around at the faces gathered in the light, his heart swelling with a quiet realization. "All of you are like family to me," he says, the words slipping out with genuine warmth. He lifts his own cup, eyes bright and soft, offering a smile that reaches every corner of his face. A man in a military-style uniform pours water from a bucket onto the dry, rocky ground, the liquid vanishing instantly into the earth. A woman with a headband and a bucket approaches, greeting him warmly as "my lord." He responds by addressing her as Batara, his tone casual despite the formal title she used. The man insists she call him by his name instead of a title, dismissing her protest that such familiarity is rude. He insists it is fine, his demeanor relaxed and welcoming. He turns his attention to the well nearby, noting how much water must have seeped underground since he refilled it only a couple of days ago. He is surprised by how quickly the water level has fallen, the dry earth swallowing the liquid far too fast for his liking. Cyan traces the logic of the dry earth, realizing the well must have drawn from a deep underground vein. Batora corrects him, recounting the history of the great 1,000-year drought that struck 5 years ago. But she stops there, revealing the truth lies before the disaster. Before the drought, the kingdom had launched a development project in the Great Valley. It failed and they abandoned the land. Yet the water levels began to drop the exact moment they left. The coincidence hangs heavy over the castle in the distance. The kingdom. The realization crashes through Cyan's mind, his eyes widening with sudden, sharp clarity. Batara speaks up, admitting the truth they've been hiding. They still don't know where the actual source of the water is. Cyan doesn't hesitate. He names the Great Valley and declares he must start investigating soon. His gaze drops to the chalice in his hand. He knows it's easy to deal with this problem while he's alive, but the future is a darker road. To rely on its power for decades to come would be foolish. He won't let his people depend on a miracle forever. The rocky cliff edge signals the end of the line for today. Cyan calls for the investigation to end for the day, his voice tired but resolute. Batara softens the moment with an offer, suggesting they can have some snacks together if he wants. The weight of the search lifts as the scene settles on a quiet spread of tea and cookies, a small moment of peace before the road ahead. Batara pops the cookie into her mouth, eyes sparkling with pure delight. Cyan encourages her to try it, explaining the treat is crafted from local sabo cactus. She savors the flavor, noting the bitterness of the plant perfectly balances the sweetness of the sugar. She gushes about the chef's skill. Then a sudden worry strikes, sugar is absurdly expensive. She freezes, panic rising in her chest. Cyan steps in, his voice steady, telling her not to panic. Cyan leans in with a confident grin, dropping a secret that sounds too good to be true. Because you'll eventually be able to get sugar for cheap. Batara blinks, her confusion palpable. Huh? But how? Before she can press further, Cyan turns on his heel and sprints away, shouting over his shoulder. Okay, gotta go, he waves a hand dismissively. For now, pretend that you heard nothing. Batara reaches out, her voice trailing after him. Milo. Cyan-sama, the scene shifts to the estate gates. Cyan bursts through, breathless but triumphant. I'm back, a servant's voice greets him warmly from the courtyard. Welcome back, young master. Cyan sprints down the hallway, breathless but driven. Father intercepts him, informing him that the kitchen is already prepared. Cyan thanks him warmly before rushing past. Behind him, Father stands with Bertrel, watching the young lord vanish into the room. Bertrel scratches his head, wondering aloud what the young master could possibly be planning, while Father watches the kitchen door, muttering that the boy is trying to make sugar out of thin air. Inside, Cyan pulls his hood tight, ready to begin his impossible work. A spoon dumps sugar into a bowl, the grains scattering in a soft clatter. Cyan grins, the mixture of water and sugar water ready before him. All right, he leans toward the small creature hovering beside him, eyes bright with the weight of his idea. If I duplicate this, he tells it, the liquid in the pot bubbling violently. Then boil it down. Cyan squeezes his eyes shut, sweat trickling down his temple as the realization hits. Crap, the mixture in the pot has turned into a blackened sludge. He stares at the mess, the boiling water having turned his precious mixture into nothing. So this is what the sugar water boils down to. Cyan slams his hands against the counter, frustration boiling over as the pot's contents remain a blackened mess. Why did it turn out like this? He cries out, the sound echoing in the kitchen. Father steps forward, his voice sharp with disbelief. Are you telling me that it doesn't work like salt water? He shakes his head, the weight of the failure settling between them. Why are you trying to make sugar? He asks, the question hanging heavy in the air. Cyan lowers his head, his voice dropping to a mumble. I was thinking of making it a specialty of this city. He explains the logic behind his desperate plan, the cost of sugar driving his ambition. It's expensive, so I thought if I made a lot of it, it would make things easier. Father says nothing, his silence speaking louder than words. Then a voice cuts through the tension. Young master, can you put some sugar water into this pot? The servant asks, her tone gentle despite the chaos. Cyan blinks, confusion clouding his eyes. The chef steps forward, a confident smile cutting through the tension. There's something I'd like to try. He takes the ladle, stirring the dark sludge with practiced ease. If you try to completely evaporate the water, he warns, then the sugar itself will burn. The servant beside him watches, wide-eyed as the chemistry lesson begins. The chef leans in, his voice steady against the shadow of failure. It's not going to burn like last time, is it? Cyan exhales, the tension draining from his frame. It's all right. Then the ladle descends, pouring a cascade of golden, shimmering syrup into the pot. It glistens under the light, thick and perfect. It's finished. The syrup is ready. The blackened sludge is gone, replaced by a golden triumph. The kitchen buzzes with uncertainty. A servant hesitates, calling out to Povil. The chef shakes his head, insisting they can't trade syrup, even as he admits it's really sweet. The woman cuts in sharp, declaring that's not true. Golden syrup pours into a bowl, thick and shimmering. It doesn't spoil easily, a famous trick among chefs that lets it store for ages. Cyan watches the stream, his eyes widening as the solution clicks into place. The chef asks the young master to pour the syrup into his cup, and Cyan obliges without hesitation. As the golden liquid fills the vessel, the servant beside him watches in awe, wondering aloud if she'll truly be able to replicate the recipe. The syrup pours smoothly, thick and perfect, and the servant's eyes widen in shock as the reality of the moment sinks in. The kitchen dissolves into a schematic of light and connection. Water is the foundation. Sugar water bridges the gap. Sugar syrup is the result. Cyan stares upward, the pieces snapping into place as the chef's lesson finally lands. The chemistry of the kitchen isn't magic, it's a ratio he can master. Povil lifts the cup high, shouting that the syrup is finally finished. The chef beside her grins, telling Cyan he did it as the golden liquid jiggles dangerously near the rim. Excitement ripples through the kitchen. The chef thanks Povil profusely for her help, then teases his colleague for blushing. He leans in, explaining that including this syrup in their dishes will secure an edge in business deals. Povil agrees, calling it great advice. Night settles over the estate, the moon hanging high above the rooftops. Cyan sits in the quiet room, holding the cup tight, grinning at the miracle in his hands. It's amazing how I can also duplicate syrup. But the joy is short-lived. A shadow crosses his face. But, in the end, something as amazing as this is only possible while I'm alive. The weight of his mortality presses down on the boy in the dark. He pulls the covers up higher. I'll need to look into alternative specialties, not just syrup. Moonlight streams through the window. Morning light spills across the bed as Cyan stirs, the dust motes dancing in the sunbeams. A maid stands waiting by the headboard, offering a polite greeting that cuts through the quiet. "Good morning, young master." Cyan rubs the sleep from his eyes, groggy but smiling. "Ah, mornin'," the maid steps closer, her expression sharp and knowing. She reads the silence hanging in the room, noting that the usual construction noise is absent. "The look on your face is saying, I can't hear the sound of the construction." Cyan blinks, caught off guard by her insight. "How did you know?" She leans in, a hint of mischief in her voice as she explains her vigilance. "Because I'm always staring at, looking over you." "Demon beasts." The words slip out of Cyan's mouth, sharp and sudden. The maid tilts her head, confused by the sudden shift in topic. "Hunting? Birds?" she asks, trying to make sense of his outburst. Cyan sits up straighter, explaining that all the able-bodied men went out hunting today. She narrows her eyes, pressing him on the wording. "Just now you meant scouting, right?" The correction lands like a hammer. Cyan's eyes widen in horror as the terrifying image of a massive winged demon beast tearing into its prey burns into his mind. "Hunting? Demon beasts?" The maid recalls a lesson from Ensha-sensei, mentioning that the people of Desura eat the flesh of these demon beasts. Cyan stares, his mind racing with the weight of the information. He remembers hearing that the beasts are so strong they require a very large group to defeat them, but he questions aloud how the people here manage to beat them if they can't use magic. The maid turns to leave, her boots clicking against the floor as she announces she's going to visit Ensha-sensei for a bit. She wishes him a good day before stepping out. A sharp knock echoes on the wood. Ensha opens the door to find the maid standing there, breathless. "Ensha-sensei, I'm here to ask you some stuff about the demon beasts," the maid calls out, urgency driving her voice. Ensha stands firm, her expression unreadable behind thick-rimmed glasses as she holds a notebook against her chest. The stern woman doesn't smile. She just listens, ready to answer the questions that have been burning in the maid's mind. The maid stands before the stern woman, the notebook tucked tight against her chest. "Ensha-sensei." She doesn't wait for a greeting, the image of the winged beast still fresh in her mind. "There's something I'd like to ask you about the demon beasts. If you don't mind." Ensha tilts her head, glasses glinting as she accepts the request. "Demon beasts, huh?" "That's fine," she admits she's a little interested, her voice soft but serious. The maid bows her head in relief, thanking her profusely. Ensha murmurs that her interest runs deeper than a mere little. She explains the history, her tone shifting to something more academic. Due to a great subjugation long ago, the demon beasts almost went extinct. Ensha closes her notebook, her voice steady as she admits the truth. Details about the demon beasts are relatively scarce, she explains, because there simply aren't enough live samples to study. Cyan pauses, the weight of the unknown settling in. Is that so?" he asks, the uncertainty clear in his voice. Ensha shakes her head, offering a practical solution instead. Because of that, she thinks it's easier to just ask the natives for more information. The idea sparks something in Cyan. "Smart. Let's get going then." He shouts, his energy returning as he turns toward the town. They step into the bustle of the streets, drawn into a conversation with the locals. A dark-haired woman stops them, her eyes wide with curiosity. "Demon beast hunting?" she asks, catching the tail end of their discussion. A blonde woman beside her steps forward, arms crossed, offering a direct answer. If you're asking about that, she says, you should check the ruins. The word lands like a new clue. Ruins. Ensha repeats, the question hanging in the dusty air as the group turns their attention toward the distant structures. The locals explain the ruin west of the city suddenly appeared 8 years ago, unearthed by natural tectonic movements. Ensha listens, her expression tightening as she processes the information. This is the first she's heard of a ruin in the territory of Erimos. The kingdom truly forgot this place existed. Good grief. But even so, Cyan's worry cuts through the discovery. Isn't it really tough to kill demon beasts? We were scared at first too, one woman admits, her neighbor nodding that life goes on fine as long as you don't let your guard down. Cyan pauses, struck by a way of thinking he doesn't hear very often. Ensha snaps her notebook shut, the sound sharp and final. She thanks them for the information, but Cyan stares into the distance. The tale of the demon beasts isn't a solved mystery, it's even more confusing now. Before he can speak, a voice cuts through the street calling out his name. Ensha suggests they head to the ruins and investigate, her voice trembling with anticipation. Cyan lets out a sharp breath, the realization hitting him instantly. Ensha tells the guide he'll see why soon, silencing his hesitation. The man apologizes for dragging the young master along, his worry spilling over as he fears something might happen to Cyan in such a strange place. She points out the tall grass, noting that plants are definitely growing here. Cyan's eyes widen as the logic clicks into place. He looks out at the horizon, realizing the ruins are surrounded by desert as far as the eye can see, yet thick with greenery. The contradiction burns in his mind. Why is there so much life here? The group finally arrives at the site, the ruins standing stark against the bright sky. There it is, they exclaim, the structure looming ahead with its broken stone walls and open windows. From the tall grass, Cyan peers forward, his earlier skepticism melting away. So it was real. It actually looks pretty impressive. The ancient architecture stands firm, a silent testament to the mystery waiting inside. Cyan's face fills the frame, eyes wide and blazing with sudden electric realization. Speed lines radiate outward from his head, emphasizing the shock of the moment as the pieces of the puzzle snap together. He understands now, this isn't just a ruin, it's a sanctuary where life thrives against all odds. The greenery in the middle of the desert makes perfect sense, and the excitement of the discovery burns bright in his expression. A blade flashes through the air, striking the hooded guide hard enough to send sparks flying. Cyan watches from the left, eyes wide with shock as the impact lands. The guide stumbles but steadies himself, raising a hand to show he's not hurt. I'm fine. No problem, Ensha and the maid stand behind him relieved. The guide turns to check on them, asking if they are okay. But the tension snaps instantly as a group of locals surges forward. A man with dreadlocks grips his sword, shouting orders to hold back. Watch it. This is no place for women and children. The air grows thick with hostility as the group closes in, demanding they back off. A sharp cry tears through the air as the guide slams into the dirt. My lord, the voice cracks, realization dawning. The man bows low, forehead nearly touching the ground, stammering that he thought they were beasts in the middle of a hunt. I'm so damn sorry, he cries out. Cyan steps forward, hands raised to calm the trembling man. It's my fault for being so careless, he says, insisting he's fine and telling the guide to raise his head. With the tension broken, the group turns to the locals. We're trying to investigate the demon beasts, Cyan explains. If you don't mind, I was wondering if we could come along with you guys. The dreadlocked man freezes, eyes wide. Investigate. The locals scream that there is no way they can let the nobles do that, terrified of what would happen if the nobles got injured. Ensha doesn't flinch, her glasses glinting as she delivers a chilling counteroffer. If the men let them come along, they will overlook the fact that the locals just tried to take Cyan-sama's life. The tension ripples through the air, heavy and suffocating. Cyan stands firm, his voice cutting through the silence. He knows it is hard to accept, but he insists he is coming with them anyway. The dreadlocked man stares, then finally relents. Got it. The stone ruins loom silent and broken against the sky, a stark monument to the past. Then the peace shatters. A massive dragon-like beast lunges from the shadows, its claws tearing at the air. Chaos erupts instantly. On the right, Ensha and Isla brace themselves, the blonde warrior in armor ready to strike, while the woman with glasses watches the danger close in. Beside them, Alba points forward, his voice cutting through the noise, commanding action. Cyan stands in the center, cape fluttering, eyes locked on the threat. To the left, the dreadlocked guide shouts a warning, spear raised, as he fights to protect the group. A smaller beast crashes into the foreground, and a masked man watches from the corner, tension thick in the air. The investigation has turned into a fight for survival. Lightning crackles through the air, striking the mechanical beast head-on and shattering its crystalline form into a blinding explosion of shards. The shockwave ripples outward, forcing the bald warrior to brace his shield against the impact as the debris rains down. Nearby, the guide watches the crystals fall around him, the weight of the battle pressing down on the group as the dust settles. The sky clears above the tree line, the storm finally passing. On the ground, the mechanical beasts lie shattered, their crystalline bodies glittering like treasure in the dust. A voice cuts through the silence with delight, marveling at the sheer quantity of materials recovered from the fight. The dust settles, and the locals offer a candid assessment of the battle. Rohagoth admits he expected more difficulty, but the villagers explain it was surprisingly easy because the beasts were only from the upper floors. Rohagoth elaborates on the ruins' mechanics, warning that the deeper they descend, the stronger the monsters grow, and even killing them doesn't stop them from returning to life. It is a strange cycle of respawn and escalation. As the group prepares to leave, a villager invites Rohagoth to the Harvest Festival, promising it will be exciting. Rohagoth waves off the offer, thanking the nobles instead, but the words linger. Cyan stops short, the mention of a harvest festival catching him completely off guard. The meat is to die for. A villager savors a skewer, promising a feast to celebrate the hunt. Ensha eyes the food, her stomach growling in hunger. Cyan stands apart, wondering what he can contribute to the harvest festival as the lord. Suddenly the villager turns, calling out young. Master, he commands Cyan to stay behind him and keep his distance. The other villagers, including the dreadlocked guide Rohagoth, stare in stunned silence. A small, fluffy dog emerges from the tall grass, its paws tapping softly against the dirt. The tension that had gripped the group dissolves into sheer relief. Rohagoth drops his guard, muttering a weary sigh. "Oh jeez. That's it." The villager beside him chuckles, explaining the situation simply. "Just some desert dog's lost puppy." Ensha blinks, the realization settling in. "Desert dog. Desert dog." Ensha adjusts her glasses, muttering the name before explaining they are nimble, hostile creatures of the wilderness. She declares it isn't a demon beast and turns away, admitting she isn't interested anymore. The boy sighs in relief, glad the threat wasn't a demon beast. Looking at the creature closely, he thinks it's pretty cute. A fluffy dog sits in the grass, harmless and small. The fluffy desert dog hovers in the sky, paws outstretched as if swimming through the air. Cyan stands below, staring upward with his mouth agape, completely baffled by the impossible sight. The creature floats weightlessly, defying gravity entirely and leaving him speechless. A scream tears through the group as the man in the cloak shouts, "Why, young master!" The floating dog crashes down and the villagers recoil in horror. "What is it doing to our lord?" they cry, scrambling to protect him. A villager lunges forward, grabbing the creature midair. "Pull it off! Pull it off!" he yells, straining to separate the beast from the young lord. A villager yanks the creature loose from Cyan's grasp, and the fluffy beast wriggles free to bolt into the tall grass. Ensha catches the dazed young lord, her glasses glinting as she scans the empty path. "That desert dog sure was strange," she mutters, shaking her head at the impossible feat. "Are you all right, young master?" she asks, her grip firm on his shoulder. Rohagoth rubs his hands together, eyes sparkling with a strange realization. "It was so fluffy," he whispers, completely unbothered by the danger. The dog turns back, sniffing the air with a casual indifference that defies the panic. A gasp ripples through the group, but the villager beside him shouts into the void. "What's up with that dog?" The creature simply trots away, leaving the nobles and their guides to stare after the impossible pet. Cyan finishes his story with a shrug, recounting the chaos of the floating dog. "And that's what happened. Ensha covers her mouth, eyes crinkling with amusement. How chaotic she breathes. They sit side by side on a wooden bench under the open sky. Cyan leans back, satisfied. But I did learn a lot about demon beasts in the Harvest Festival. Ensha smiles warmly, her voice gentle. I hope that you're able to enjoy the Harvest Festival, Cyan-sama. A quiet thought drifts from her, sincere and soft. I'm glad to hear that. Cyan grins, the absurdity of the day settling into a practical joke. It'll be hard to pass on eating something as lavish as demon beast meat. The leader was gushing over it after all. Ensha breaks down the hunt's true yield, explaining that bones, skin, and magic stones used as jewelry are just as valuable as the meat. A merchant from the neighboring town purchases these materials, a fact that catches Cyan off guard. He asks about the merchant, and Ensha nods, noting he usually arrives a week after a hunt. Every month he also brings her all kinds of goodies. She thinks he's a good person. Cyan considers the information, realizing the city's economy might be supported by this trade. I see, he murmurs, his mind already turning to the implications. Cyan murmurs about the journey, recalling only deserted towns along the way. Ensha breaks the silence, asking if he plans to attend the Harvest Festival in 2 days. He answers without hesitation, promising he will. But then his confidence falters, a soft sound escaping him. Ensha stammers, asking if he'd go with her. She fidgets nervously, cheeks flushed as she waits for his reply. Ensha's heart hammers against her ribs as she finally finds the words, her cheeks burning. With me? Will you go to the Harvest Festival with me? The question hangs there, fragile and trembling. Cyan blinks, caught completely off guard by the sudden invitation. You sure? The words slip out before he can stop them, but then the smile breaks through the shock, bright and genuine. I'd be glad to. Ensha blushes deeply, admitting she's happy when he's by her side. Cyan catches the sentiment instantly, beaming back with a cheerful yeah. I'm happy when you're by my side, and asks why she looks so surprised. Ensha blinks, cheeks burning, stammering that she didn't expect him to mean it. Under the open sky above the dunes, she suddenly stiffens with resolve, declaring she will serve him as best she can. Cyan just laughs it off, waving his hands and telling her to take it easy, his carefree voice echoing against the desert wind. The evening of the Harvest Festival arrives, and the air carries a surprising coolness. But still, I feel as if Deseret is the best place to live in this territory, Ensha muses. It's been pleasantly cool here despite the environment. Around the table, the family eats in comfortable silence. Father rests his chin on his hand, explaining the source of the refreshing air. It's probably the wind that's flowing down from the mountains. He looks toward the window where the breeze originates. Across from the Great Valley. Is it even possible to carry a breeze here from all the way over there? The question hangs in the cool night air. The Great Valley. Abandoned by the kingdom after that old development project failed. Ensha warns that the valley is said to be a place full of magic, while Isla adds that the fog surrounding the area is so thick it obscures vision and huge flying monsters lurk within. At the dinner table, Father warns Ensha to stop scaring the young master like that. Ensha grins, suggesting the monsters could probably gobble up young master in a single bite. Cyan insists he isn't scared, though his nervous laughter betrays him. The woman in the suit bids him well. The woman in the white coat wishes him a good festival with Lady Batara. Father ensures security is in place, noting that Lugos and Lohagos are already on their way there and they will be there later. Cyan replies, all right, got it. The maid promises, I'll leave it to Rapam to protect you. Cyan waves goodbye, saying, I'll see you all later then. Father stands silently watching him leave. 2 servants watch the young lord with warm smiles, remarking on how much he's grown lately. He's always been gentle at his core, they agree, but before it felt like he was tied down by something heavy. But ever since coming here and leaving the Badley residence. Maybe it's because he's been acting so carefree now, but he seems a lot more cheerful these days. Indeed, they can hardly imagine the former Cyan eating at the same table as vassals like us. The servants watch the young lord with warm smiles, remarking on how much he's grown lately. He's always been gentle at his core, they agree, but before it felt like he was tied down by something heavy. But ever since coming here and leaving the Badley residence. Maybe it's because he's been acting so carefree now, but he seems a lot more cheerful these days. Indeed, they can hardly imagine the former scion eating at the same table as vassals like us. The servants watch the young lord with warm smiles, remarking on how much he's grown lately. He's always been gentle at his core, they agree, but before it felt like he was tied down by something heavy. But ever since coming here and leaving the Badley residence. Maybe it's because he's been acting so carefree now, but he seems a lot more cheerful these days. Indeed, they can hardly imagine the former scion eating at the same table as vassals like us. The servants watch the young lord with warm smiles, remarking on how much he's grown lately. He's always been gentle at his core, they agree, but before it felt like he was tied down by something heavy. But ever since coming here and leaving the Badley residence. Maybe it's because he's been acting so carefree now, but he seems a lot more cheerful these days. Indeed, they can hardly imagine the former scion eating at the same table as vassals like us. The servants watch the young lord with warm smiles, remarking on how much he's grown lately. He's always been gentle at his core, they agree, but before it felt like he was tied down by something heavy. But ever since coming here and leaving the Badley residence. Maybe it's because he's been acting so carefree now, but he seems a lot more cheerful these days. Indeed, they can hardly imagine the former scion eating at the same table as vassals like us. The servants watch the young lord with warm smiles, remarking on how much he's grown lately. He's always been gentle at his core, they agree, but before it felt like he was tied down by something heavy. But ever since coming here and leaving the Badley residence. Maybe it's because he's been acting so carefree now, but he seems a lot more cheerful these days. Indeed, they can hardly imagine the former scion eating at the same table as vassals like us. The servants watch the young lord with warm smiles, remarking on how much he's grown lately. He's always been gentle at his core, they agree, but before it felt like he was tied down by something heavy. But ever since coming here and leaving the Badley residence. Maybe it's because he's been acting so carefree now, but he seems a lot more cheerful these days. Indeed, they can hardly imagine the former scion eating at the same table as vassals like us. The servants watch the young lord with warm smiles, remarking on how much he's grown lately. He's always been gentle at his core, they agree, but before it felt like he was tied down by something heavy. But ever since coming here and leaving the Badley residence. Maybe it's because he's been acting so carefree now, but he seems a lot more cheerful these days. Indeed, they can hardly imagine the former scion eating at the same table as. The servants watch the young lord with warm smiles, remarking on how much he's grown lately. He's always been gentle at his core, they agree, but before it felt like he was tied down by something heavy. But ever since coming here and leaving the Badley residence. Maybe it's because he's been acting so carefree now, but he seems a lot more cheerful these days. Indeed, they can hardly imagine the former scion eating at the same table as vassals like us. The servants watch the young lord with warm smiles, remarking on how much he's grown lately. He's always been gentle at his core, they agree, but before it felt like he was tied down by something heavy. But ever since coming here and leaving the Badley residence. Maybe it's because he's been acting so carefree now, but he seems a lot more cheerful these days. Indeed, they can hardly imagine the former scion eating at the same table as vassals like us. The servants watch the young lord with warm smiles, remarking on how much he's grown lately. He's always been gentle at his core, they agree, but before it felt like he was tied down by something heavy. But ever since coming here and leaving the Badley residence. Maybe it's because he's been acting so carefree now, but he seems a lot more cheerful these days. Indeed, they can hardly imagine the former scion eating at the same table as vassals like us. The servants watch the young lord with warm smiles, remarking on how much he's grown lately. He's always been gentle at his core, they agree, but before it felt like he was tied down by something heavy. But ever since coming here and leaving the Badley residence. Maybe it's because he's been acting so carefree now, but he seems a lot more cheerful these days. Indeed, they can hardly imagine the former scion eating at the same table as vassals like us. The servants watch the young lord with warm smiles, remarking on how much he's grown lately. He's always been gentle at his core, they agree, but before it felt like he was tied down by something heavy. But ever since coming here and leaving the Badley residence. Maybe it's because he's been acting so carefree now, but he seems a lot more cheerful these days. Indeed, they can hardly imagine the former scion eating at the same table as vassals like us. The servants watch the young lord with warm smiles, remarking on how much he's grown lately. He's always been gentle at his core, they agree, but before it felt like he was tied down by something heavy. But ever since coming here and leaving the Badley residence. Maybe it's because he's been acting so carefree now, but he seems a lot more cheerful these days. Indeed, they can hardly imagine the former scion eating at the same table as vassals like us. The servants watch the young lord with warm smiles, remarking on how much he's grown lately. He's always been gentle at his core, they agree, but before it felt like he was tied down by something heavy. But ever since coming here and leaving the Badley residence. Maybe it's because he's been acting so carefree now, but he seems a lot more cheerful these days. Indeed, they can hardly imagine the former scion eating at the same. The maid turns away, dismissing the weight of the moment with a sharp shake of her head. No, there's no sense in thinking about such trivialities. But Ensha stands firm, arms raised in a gesture of pure devotion. My only duty right now is to believe in young master, and to support him as much as I can. Bertrel steps into the light, his expression grave. Young master, this Bertrel, I will accompany you wherever you go. The elves live at the base of the mountains. Ensha reveals with a sparkle in her eye, claiming her grandmother actually greeted one in person. Scion stumbles back, eyes wide, whispering the word elves like it's a myth. The maid beside them shakes her head, reminding him they're rarely seen by people, a rare sight indeed. But Ensha just giggles, admitting her grandmother was drunk when she told the story. Scion blinks, the realization hitting him that he's been listening to drunken nonsense this whole time. She found a traveler who had collapsed. The maid begins, her voice steady as she recalls the past. She took them in and cared for them. Ensha leans in, eyes bright with wonder. She turned out to be a very beautiful girl. Her ears were very long and pointy. Scion catches the thread immediately, connecting the dots with a sharp realization. That fits the description of an elf. Isla nods along, filling in the gaps of the memory. Soon after, they quickly became acquainted. The maid adds a detail from the past. She told her a lot of things while drinking together. Ensha points toward the mountains, her voice speculative. I think she came from the Great Valley. Also, I think her friends were waiting for her at the base of the mountain. Isla finishes the tale with a finality that hangs in the air. After some time, they came to pick her up. And she never saw her since. Scion grins, the mystery resolved and the story complete. That was a really great story. Scion stumbles over the name High Elf. Echoing the shock. The explanation sharpens, a higher race of elves entirely. Normal elves command the wind. High elves wield all other magic. But there is a twist, high elves can't use wind magic. Scion tilts his head, skepticism cutting through the air as he challenges the lore. But don't they have the blessing of the sylphs? He admits he's read books about fairies before, but the answer lies in the jealousy of the spirits. Among the fairies, it's the sylphs who grant magic to the elves, yet they get jealous very easily. They won't make contracts with elves who already have one, which is exactly why high elves can't use wind magic. Ensha steps in to clarify the source of the breeze. Because the elves there can control wind with their magic. The wind that flows from the mountain comes down to Deseret. The realization hits Scion like a cool draft. So that's the reason why it's so cool around here. His stomach interrupts the moment with a loud rumble, a asterisk giru-giru sound that underlines the sudden clarity. Ensha's stomach growls loudly, the sound echoing in the quiet moment. Rapam notices immediately and offers a drink, knowing it isn't a full meal but something to tide her over. Scion smiles reassuringly, telling her there is no need to worry, but Ensha is already flustered. She stammers out an apology, embarrassed by her own hunger and the rudeness of it all. Rapam extends a hand, offering a teacup he produced from his sleeve. Scion watches the exchange, surprised by the convenience. He asks if Rapam always keeps a teacup on his person, but Ensha is too busy accepting the gift to dwell on it. She holds the warm cup, thanking him profusely and admitting she owes him a debt again. Rapam explains that milk tea usually settles his own stomach when he is hungry, and offers her more options if she prefers something else. Ensha looks at the cup with wide eyes, asking if she really can choose. Cyan reveals the cup's true secret, explaining it remembers every liquid poured inside and lets him switch the contents just by touching the surface. He demonstrates by tapping a floating bubble labeled black tea. Ensha holds the warm cup, marveling at the convenience, while Rapam admits she only learned of this power recently. In the quiet aftermath, Ensha notices Cyan's grin and asks why he's smiling. He answers without hesitation, telling them he's smiling because they're both so charming, leaving the maids staring in bewildered silence. The market roars with life under a vast, cloudy sky. Stalls overflow with crates of vegetables, garlic and onions hanging in heavy bunches from the wooden rafters. A vendor in a tank top cups his hands around his mouth, shouting his wares to the passing crowd. Nearby, a chef in a tall hat smiles as he prepares a dish, steam rising from his work. Further down the line, another man with a headband throws his arm wide, calling out enthusiastically to the people rushing past him, including a small child darting through the crowd. Ensha's eyes widen at the sheer scale of the bustling market, her awe spilling out into a breathless whisper. "It's so big." Amazing, beside her, a local woman beams with pride, clarifying the reason for the crowd's energy. Well, this time we're also celebrating Cyan-sama's inauguration. A villager pushes through the throng, waving a friendly hand with a grin. "You, young master. That thing you wanted is ready," the organizer announces, his voice cutting through the market noise. The guard beside him shoves forward, urging the performer to hurry and take the stage. The man with the headband grins, promising that this time the show will blow everyone away. Ensha stands nearby, eyes wide as she takes in the massive crowd, noting there are more people here than at the tea ceremony. The performer grabs the young lord's arm, dragging him forward with an eager laugh. Come on, let's get going already." While Ensha watches from the sidelines. The square roars with a sea of faces, all eyes fixed on the stage where folding screens stand like a fortress of wood. From the wings, Ensha watches, her mind catching up to the reality. He wasn't kidding. There's a lot more people here than before, maybe because they all recovered from the epidemic. From the edge of the stage, a performer in a headband shouts encouragement, pumping a fist into the air. "Go get 'em, young master." Cyan steps into the light, the noise of the crowd fading as he faces the sea of villagers. He clears his throat and speaks to the gathering. "Good evening, everyone. I'm Lord Cyan Badley." Cyan stands tall, hand pressed to his chest as he addresses the crowd. He knows the whispers, the anxiety rippling through the villagers who worry their new lord is too young to lead. But he won't let that doubt linger. He declares it loud and clear for everyone to hear. By his power and by the strength of everyone else, they will survive. "I will transform this land that the kingdom abandoned," Cyan vows, his voice ringing out over the sea of faces. The villagers lean in, their expressions a mix of awe and skepticism as the new lord claims the future in his hands. He doesn't just want to rule, he wants to rebuild what was left behind. Cyan's vow crashes through the square, finishing with a promise that cuts through the doubt. He declares he will turn this forsaken land into a happy and prosperous place that'll make them regret giving up on us. The crowd stands frozen, faces etched with a mixture of disbelief and a flicker of hope. The weight of his ambition settles over the sea of villagers, binding them to his vision of a future built on defiance against the kingdom that cast them aside. Faces in the crowd lean forward, eyes wide as the noise swells. The square erupts into a deafening roar, fists punching the air as the villagers rise to meet his vow. A massive shout tears through the noise, shaking the stage where Cyan stands small against the wave of support. "That's the spirit, my lord." A man with an eye patch pumps his fist, his voice cutting through the cheers. "I believe in you." Another voice joins the chorus, sealing the pact between lord and people. The doubt from the kingdom vanishes, replaced by the thunderous weight of a people ready to follow. The crowd surges, voices rising in a chorus of gratitude. A man with a headband beams, reminding everyone that Cyan gave out medicine without charge. Beside him, a man with dreadlocks adds that the young lord even joined them on a hunt, showing his bravery. Another voice chimes in that there is more to the story. The support swells around Cyan. "You can do it," someone shouts. "We're with you," another cries out. "Same here, me too." The words wash over him, a tide of belief he didn't expect. Cyan stands stunned, his eyes shimmering as the weight of their trust settles on his shoulders, turning his shock into a quiet, radiant smile. "All right, now let's lighten up the mood," Cyan shouts, raising his cup high above the stage. He declares that as thanks, he's serving fruit wine he borrowed, straight from the Badley residence. Dark liquid pours from his cup into the waiting barrels, a rich stream filling the wood. The crowd watches in stunned silence before realization dawns. They whisper that their lord is so generous, giving them fancy wine as a gift. A villager beams from the sidelines, shouting Cyan-sama. Ensha adds, "Good job up there." On stage, Cyan rubs the back of his neck, looking a bit sheepish. "I think I set the bar a bit too high," he admits. No, it was very encouraging," he counters, soaking in the warmth of their support. The man with the headband approaches, hefting a large wooden barrel. "Young master, please fill up these barrels," Cyan laughs it off, waving a hand. Fine. Cyan pours the dark fruit wine, the stream steady and strong. A couple weeks ago, he would have drained his magic power dry just trying to lift this, but now he doesn't feel exhausted at all. 3 massive barrels sit waiting, already brimming with the rich liquid. A villager beams up at him, thanking the young master for the generous gift. Cyan waves a hand and tells him you're welcome, but he warns them to watch out. The smell alone is powerful enough to make you drunk. Ensha watches from the side, her eyes widening in shock at the sheer potency of the drink. "Cyan-sama," the shout erupts, a voice brimming with pure adoration. Before he can even process the noise, arms wrap around him from all sides. Ensha cries out, "Young master," her grip tight against his chest. Cyan stands paralyzed, mouth agape, his body completely engulfed by the sudden, crushing weight of their affection. The wine he poured has turned into a flood of devotion, and he has no idea how to stand against the tide. A villager in a headband asks if the young master is all right, the crowd's adoration settling into concern. Ensha pulls herself together, telling the elf Rapam that she's okay. She offers thanks to Batara, her face flushed with embarrassment. The elf stammers, blushing deeply as he recalls how close a face had been. The night sky stretches dark and starry above the festival tents. A skewer of dark, glistening cubes sizzles before Cyan, steam rising in the cool air. He stares at the unfamiliar dish, murmuring that this is demon beast meat, his first time trying it. He takes a bite, eyes widening in surprise. A sharp intake of breath escapes him, then a shout of pure ecstasy rings out. "Delicious!" His face flushes deep red, sweat beading on his brow as he savors the flavor. Beside him, Ensha watches with a bright, happy smile, her joy mirroring his. The table groans under the weight of mugs and plates, the noise of the feast echoing around the wooden benches. A note in the sky clarifies the rules of the land. In Deseret, drinking is legal for anyone 12 and older. The young lord raises his wooden mug, grinning with reckless abandon as he declares that everyone should enjoy the moment, bodyguard included. The woman beside him hesitates, reminding him that her duty is to protect him, not to drink. He waves off her concern with a cheerful laugh, insisting that this celebration is for everyone. With a final nod, he lifts the heavy mug high, ready to toast to the night ahead. Cyan raises his mug high, shouting his wish for the land's development as liquid splashes into the starlight. Cheers erupt from the crowd, drowning out the night. Ensha tilts her head back, swallowing deep from her own mug while the villagers around the table feast. The muscular bodyguard grins, clinking his heavy mug against Cyan's with a solid thud, sealing the pact in drink. From the edge of the table, Father watches the celebration unfold, a quiet observer to the young lord's new world. Father watches the revelry, noting how everyone seems to be truly enjoying themselves. Cyan simply agrees, a quiet smile on his face. Beside him, Ensha seems a bit off, her cheeks flushed. When Cyan asks if she can't handle her liquor, she frantically denies it, stammering her thanks for the drink. Laughter and cheers fill the air as the villagers beam with happiness. Looking out over the joyful crowd, Cyan feels the moment settle deep within him, vowing that he will never forget this sight. Suddenly, the cup shudders in Cyan's grip. He freezes, eyes widening in shock as a mysterious voice echoes, "Condition fulfilled." The artifact is no longer just a cup, it is the Holy Grail, and its dormant power is finally beginning to stir. A partial restoration has begun, promising a new, unknown function that will change everything. Cyan grips the cup as a voice declares, "You have met the requirement." The words settle and another echoes, "A part of the power of the chalice will now be available." Below, a rush of sugar and starch syrup whirs past, and Cyan's eyes widen in shock. Something has changed. Options to use 50 points of the people's happiness to improve the water to delicious water flash before Cyan. His eye widens, a sweat drop forming as he stares at the choice. The top of his head is visible, framing his reaction to the options. A thought bubbles with a question. Would you like to use 50 points of the people's happiness to improve the quality of the water to delicious water? A voice adds. That's a subtle change. Below, a character offers Cyan a drink, calling it delicious. He stammers, "Why yes, sure," as a sound effect hums. Ensha tilts her head, confused, asking if he's okay. Cyan stares, then thinks, "Wait. It's a bit hectic at the moment, so I'll think about this later." His eyes narrow, conflicted. Baitala asks if the girl has had too much to drink, concerned. She smiles, saying she hasn't. The elf beside her looks worried, noticing she doesn't seem like herself. The girl looks at Cyan, tears in her eyes, and starts sobbing, asking why he ignores her and her former colleagues. She says all she wants is to serve the Birdry family and understand her sister's feelings, but she's been exiled from their manor. A girl grabs Cyan's face, pulling it as she begs for his attention. In the busy tavern, onlookers murmur. One wishes to be lucky enough to be by his side, another marvels at the two ladies with him, calling him a man who can change a town. As night falls, the women don't let him go, and Cyan panics, shouting for help. A woman teases Lord Cyan about being a lady killer, noting he seemed to enjoy the day before. Cyan defends himself, mentioning he should have intervened as Ms. Media watched. He then shifts to asking about yesterday's request, looking surprised when she reveals she already figured it out. A girl with glasses asks Cyan to promise not to get mad before revealing something. Cyan is confused. They stand in a brick corridor as the door creaks open. A girl with glasses stands beside Cyan in a brick corridor, surrounded by writhing, vine-like tendrils that hiss swarm. Cyan stares wide-eyed, mouth open, as a close-up shows his shocked expression with a question mark. A girl with glasses confronts someone holding a box, accusing them of lying about a plant being an experimental sample from the former lord. She holds up a vial, explaining she took the blood of a magical beast given to them and dropped it in the soil. The person looks shocked with wide eyes. The girl with glasses holds a vial, stating a magical beast's blood can recover magical powers and it's not a nutritional supplement, having checked with an appraisal lens. Cyan looks shocked, asking if he should drink the blood. A young boy drinks a liquid, explaining he followed the people's footsteps and drank it before the harvest festival. He says it gives energy and helps with hangovers. Later, he squats and thinks he never ran out of magical powers, even though he produced a lot of alcohol. He wonders if the liquid can recover magical powers and if he can make it. Curious, he asks Ms. Media to test the magical creature's blood on plants, and she agrees. A magical power recovery potion is shown being poured, noted as rare and helpful for royalties and noblemen using magic. A plant in a pot with jars is presented, said to be a signature product for Deserto and support the town. Crates of the potion are displayed, with text explaining that long ago there were plenty, but now the number has plummeted. Two characters are shown, one behind a counter, with text stating that since demand is high, many get them from abroad at a high price. The girl with glasses holds up a vial, stating it's made from magical creature's blood for a power recovery potion. Cyan looks determined, thinking if he figures out the recipe, replication won't be hard. He has a vision of magical creatures, realizing he mustn't hunt too many at once to avoid disrupting the ecosystem. A man in a library thinks about the kingdom's magical creature hunting and the scarcity of potions, dismissing war or invasions, and believing it was a political measure for the people's safety. A woman with glasses speaks to him, asking about the young master. He's told that with his cup, he could replicate the potion in large numbers and make a fortune. He sweats, saying he tried using the potion he brought from home but couldn't replicate it. Cyan holds a potion, admitting he made some but can't replicate all liquids. He couldn't replicate the magical creature's blood either. A screen asks if he wants to use 50 points of people's happiness to improve water quality, and he looks troubled, still unsure about the happiness points. Isla states she's not relying on the cup for the potion. She wants the place to have a signature product people can make themselves, even far into the future. The girl with glasses notes Isla is thinking about the future. I'll leave the potion to Ms. Media. Thank you. I guess we should do everything we can to help out our lord. Next is how to sell it. I'm really so weary. A girl with a headband apologizes for her behavior, explaining she wasn't herself. She brings up Mr. Targel the merchant and asks a question. A boy reassures her, saying it's all right as he told her to act freely. She reveals she asked him there for a different reason, then tells him Mr. Targel has sent a message that he'll visit in 3 days now that the harvest festival is over, having been corresponding with him via carrier pigeon. A girl with a headband tells a boy holding a cup that Mr. Targel is honest and passionate about his job. The boy reacts surprised he's earlier than thought. She explains Mr. Targel is from the town left to train as a merchant. He was honest, witnessed a colleague embezzling, convinced them to apologize to their boss, and was recognized for his hard work. A colleague blames Mr. Targel for an embezzlement, even though their boss was involved, and kicks him out. Mr. Targel doesn't let it stop him, starting a new business in a neighboring town. A conversation follows, with one person calling the story horrible and the other trailing off with a "but." The boy exclaims that Mr. Targel is a hard worker and that the business is booming, with him soon opening his own shop. The girl with a headband adds that Mr. Targel is the only one willing to do business in Deserto and that without him, the town might have declined long ago. However, she notes that even with the water shortage resolved, Deserto remains in serious condition, and it's favorable that Mr. Targel is familiar with the town. The girl with a headband exclaims, "All right." The boy, eyes ablaze, declares they need Mr. Targel to save Deserto and that he's going to meet with him. The girl with a headband urges hurrying product development, frowning as the boy hums in thought. Suddenly she screams, "Young master," and sprints off while a boy bursts through a door shouting about a freaky plant and crashing. Outside, she calls for Ms. Media and a girl with glasses apologizes, claiming she brought fresh air, her voice meek. Chaos erupts as urgency clashes with unexpected commotion. Rattle rattles. A man with a cart trundles past a large, stately building. Another man stands before it, hat in hand. A suited figure steps forward, accompanied by a woman, and says Lord Cyan is eager to see Mr. Targel. Mr. Targel replies they've been waiting. So you are Mr. Targel, the one and only merchant that will do business with Deserto. I would like to show you my gratitude as the feudal lord. This town is surviving thanks to you. This is the only place I can get my hands on a magical creature item with scarcity value. I am honored, but I'm not doing business just out of the goodness of my heart. Targel buys Deserto's magical creature items and sells them as imports from a foreign nation, with no one knowing they're hunted locally. Lord Cyan notes Targel is young for a feudal lord, but praises him for solving the water shortage. Targel smiles, attributing it to his blessing and being the right fit. Cyan holds the sacred cup, explaining it creates liquid with his magic. Another man with bandages on his face looks surprised and then thoughtful. Cyan mentions being mocked by the nobility for this ability. Cyan holds up a container, saying he mass-produced something and wants the other person to taste it. The other person tastes it and finds it delicious, recognizing it as sugar starch syrup. A boy in a suit explains he wants to sell sugar starch syrup at a lower price than powdered sugar, aiming for affordable household products. The other character notes powdered sugar is expensive, and he confirms. Below, ads for desserts made with the syrup, enjoyed by noblemen, flash, with the boy adding it with his cook's recipe. A boy in a suit explains he wants to make sugar starch syrup affordable for common people, believing demand will rise once they know how to use it. Another man remarks that the recipe is usually kept closed by nobles. The boy adds there's more and a third person looks on. The first character lines in voice firm, "This is the main topic." I need you to keep it between us. Across the table, a bandaged man meets their gaze, declaring, I am a merchant. I will keep my mouth shut about our business transaction. The first character holds their ground, resolve clear. A man opens a box to reveal a magical power recovery potion, declaring his intention to make it Deserto's signature product. His eyes widen in surprise as he looks at it. Tarjal is shown a magical creature blood potion using an appraisal lens. The man with the potion expresses surprise at its value, while Tarjal looks on, recognizing it as the real deal. The bandaged man declares he needs someone honest with the ability. He wants to use that to revive Erimo's territory, where magical creatures can be hunted, full of potential. The white-haired person hunched over begs for help for the town. The young man with light hair is deep in thought about the potion. He tells the other person that since it's valuable, selling it in bulk would arouse suspicion, so they should start with just one bottle. The other person, seemingly a lord, bows down to the commoner, and the light-haired young man remarks that the lord is a strange person. He states he wants to trust the other, noting they're doing much for Deserto. The bandaged man says he doesn't trust Nobleman but is honest. He declares he'll do everything in his power. The other happy exclaims they're so happy to hear that. A boy holds a device, thinking aloud about returning something and asking how experiments are going. Two adults and a girl stand nearby. The adult says the transaction went well, and the boy replies it's thanks to everyone. A cart with barrels and a pot rattles in the background. Ms. Media states she's there, then tries to enter a lady's room but is stopped. The other person explains the lab isn't her personal room and warns her not to go in. A girl with a ponytail explains the swirling mass is a byproduct of an experiment, asking for a blind eye. The light-haired boy beside her gasps, shocked it's gotten bigger. A thud echoes as she bends, confirming it's a byproduct. He stares wide-eyed, asking if she's gained something from it. A potted plant with a thick carrot-like root sits in sand. Is this Carolia? Someone breathes. Below, a character freezes, eyes wide. What? Sand, they exclaim. That grew in sand, another voice replies. A hand dips into a bottle, swirling dark liquid. Magical creature's blood, the speaker mutters. I mixed this in the sand. A hand holds a vial labeled 1. Among others marked 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 text explains it's a magical creature blood and fertilizer mix, with the number indicating blood concentration. A light-haired boy gasps in shock as a girl with a ponytail grins, noting the Carolia was a seedling just 3 days ago. Below, a potted plant in sand stands, with text marveling it's a great discovery. Plants can grow in sand because of the magical blood, causing a rapid growth spurt. The girl with a ponytail shows off a plant, explaining it's the result of higher magical creature blood concentration. Another girl reacts with disgust, noting the growth spurt harms taste. The light-haired boy holds the plant, determined to use the blood carefully, and tells others to report findings. Lohegos checks in, and the young person, ready to start their plan, walks with him through an open area. They spot grass growing, and the young person, eyes bright, wonders if birds brought the seeds, their excitement clear. A girl with a headband waves from a bus stop. She calls Mr. Sian, a boy kneels nearby, looking up in surprise. The girl smiles, still waving. A girl with a headband points out a ceiling to a boy, mentioning he brought back the oasis. She tells him when she was small, the land had grass, trees, birds, and animals, and now they can see greenery again. A girl with a headband expresses a hope to see something again. Another character with a determined look thinks about the drought's reason and vows to work hard to make the wish come true, though they note it's still temporary. A boy looks surprised as a girl and another boy stand nearby. A small dog licks water, making slurp sounds, and the boy reacts with an OH. A girl coos over a calm desert dog, calling it cute. The boy beside her reacts, surprised. The dog jumps, thudding, and the girl admits she doesn't have a good experience with it, calling it a desert dog. The dog glares and the boy stammers, asking if she's okay. A desert dog growls, baring its teeth, as a boy steps back, sweat beading, muttering he hopes it doesn't turn hostile too. Beside him, a girl holds a small dog, grinning and telling him to thank the desert dog for the water, since animals don't care. She adds, watching the larger dog warily, that it's rare for desert dogs to show themselves to humans. Batala pets a desert dog lying on its back, which doesn't look cautious at all. A girl with a headband suggests it senses kindness, while another boy thinks it just wants attention. The girl with a headband smiles, eyes closed, as she pets the desert dog, which leans into her touch. She opens her eyes determined and says, "I know. You can have this." With a soft untie sound, she fumbles to loosen its collar. The girl with a ponytail unties a desert dog's collar, her hands steady. She speaks, eyes bright, "Here you go," and whispers, "Now if we meet again one day." The dog leans into her touch, calm. A happy dog with a collar pants, declaring, "I can know it's you," and letting out a ruff. The girl with a headband grins, hands behind her head, declaring she has more of the same. Batala, hands on hips, asks if she's sure she can give that away. A desert dog lies on its back in the sand, barking happily. The girl waves, hoping they'll meet again. A boy mutters, "Oh, me not so much," as another boy in the background admits he wanted to play with the dog's fluff. A sandstorm rages as an old man squints, demanding a short break. Another character complains about the sandstorm blocking their view, warning the old man that if he keeps dillying, the sun will set and they'll leave him. The old man responds with frustration, asking how they could be so unreasonable. Figures race across the desert, motion lines blurring their forms. "Don't worry. Once we get past this hill," a voice calls out, steady. Below, a cluster of buildings stretches out, sun-baked and silent. "It's deserto," the words hang, marking the edge of a new place. Cyan stands with his legs propped up on a desk, looking frustrated as he questions how to improve water quality. A notification appears asking if he wants to use 50 points of people's happiness for the upgrade, and he reacts with a startled "ah" as something breaks. The scene is set in front of a large, somewhat decrepit building, and Cyan still has time until his inspection that day. Cyan hisses "ouch" as he holds his head, thinking he'll ask Lugos to fix it later. Beside him, he looks surprised. A screen glows with sugar water, happiness points at 256. He stares, realizing the letters are tiny, then gasps, "H. A happiness point." Cyan stares at an option to use 50 points of people's happiness to make delicious water, surprised. He wonders if it takes happiness from them and thinks the goddess would make people unhappy. A hand points to yes, but he hesitates. Cyan holds a cup, staring at the delicious water label. He takes a gulp, thinking he reproduced it, and looks determined. Cyan slams the cup down, then takes huge gulps. His eyes widen, a grin splitting his face as he declares it the best thing he's ever tasted, vowing to drink it forever. The water's sweetness refreshes him, smooth and room temperature, no aftertaste. Cyan holds a cup of delicious water, conflicted about putting it in the oasis. He's surprised when he realizes La Femme called him, and a memory of her flexing appears. He sighs, thinking his liegemen are frighteningly competent. Cyan walks through a town, greeting people who call him Lord. He's glad nothing happened to the townsfolk, and thinks using happiness points doesn't affect them directly. He heads off with another person, feeling at ease. A girl with glasses greets Cyan and Lohagos, her tone friendly. Cyan stands beside Lohagos, looking composed as they acknowledge her. 3 people stand among rapidly growing crops. One remarks on the magical creature Blood's effects, another on the crop's crazy growth speed. A thought bubble exclaims, "Wow." Below, a person explains they're experimenting with magical creature water fertilizer to see its effect on crops. The crops grow faster and bigger with higher concentration, but quality and taste lower. A person smiles, looking at the strawberries, thinking they'll help the town develop. Strawberries hang heavy ripe. One voice notes they need time to grow but will bear fruit in a week, so not too bad. Another adds they still want them delicious, so they should hold back on the blood used. A young man stares at the strawberries, exclaiming he never thought they'd grow in Deserto, that it's the perfect balance of sweet and sour. He smiles, wanting Batala to have some too. Vines slither with a boom. A uniformed character shouts, "Why did you let it out again?" The glasses-wearing character replies, Now. "I just brought it out as a guard," they add, "Yup. It can protect the crop from thieves and pests," and the uniformed character questions, "A guard?" The girl with glasses asks Cyan what he'll do if outsiders attack their people. He says he'll talk to them. She pleads for him to give them a break, and he agrees. Vines twist nearby as a small figure cheers. Text notes low chance of outsiders getting lost here, with the great valley and desert beyond the farm. Next day, a building stands in the background. Cyan turns eyes wide as a voice shouts, "Young master, emergency!" He hears then, "Trespasser in the strawberry field." The girl with glasses runs up to Cyan, exclaiming she can't believe what happened. She shows off her vines that caught suspicious men, and one of the men thanks her for getting Cyan there. Another person gets defensive, asking who's being called suspicious. A bearded man in a winter coat struggles, tangled in thick vines, shouting, "Let us go, you monster." Above him, another person is similarly wrapped, both clearly trapped and distressed. Cyan stares in shock at the trapped men. The girl with glasses asks if they should interrogate them. Cyan tells her to put the men down so he can check something. She complies and the men yelp in surprise. Cyan stands with others as trapped men look up at him, fear evident. The girl with glasses, vines still holding the men, waits for his next move. A bearded dwarf snorts, "Ha! Kingdom's people are still so uncivilized with their greetings. Are you trying to tell us you need to be human to set foot on this land?" Cyan, wide-eyed, asks. "You're not from this town, are you all?" The dwarf narrows his eye, muttering, "Huh, the audacity." Cyan firm replies, "Why do you speak as though you aren't human?" "We are not from the kingdom." The dwarf slams a fist, booming, "We are dwarves. This magnificent beard is the proof." Cyan stares wide-eyed, exclaiming he knew it, heard of their kind but never seen them. A close-up of a bearded dwarf confirms the book's descriptions. Cyan notes the long beard and buff build. The dwarf tied up snaps they didn't steal, just came to do business. A girl with glasses demands to know why dwarves are stealing strawberries. The dwarf snarls about business partners as Cyan asks who they're dealing with. The girl with glasses argues they can't converse as equals if the dwarves are tied up. Cyan tells her to release them, and the dwarf glares fiercely. Beard introduces himself, suggesting a decent conversation. Besides Cyan Berdry, new feudal lord of Deserto, who apologizes for earlier rudeness, the bearded man reacts in surprise, questioning if the kingdom still clings to the land, and Cyan confirms it. Cyan tells the bearded dwarf the kingdom has given up on him, just a feudal lord by name. The dwarf notes Cyan looks like someone who's had a hard life. Cyan mentions they've been doing business with people from the town behind closed doors. The dwarf says if Cyan's the feudal lord, he'll find out sooner or later. Cyan asks who they're doing business with and what they're doing. The dwarf hums, thinking. Weapons clatter to the ground with a loud clang. An older man with a mustache remarks that the items are quite high grade. A younger person, wide-eyed, exclaims, "Wow." A bearded dwarf claims dwarven weapons are stronger for hunting magical creatures. Someone questions if they hide their existence, and the dwarf hesitates, saying it's not exactly so. The bearded dwarf tells Cyan they're not humans, but from the kingdom and don't want to get involved. Cyan responds, and the dwarf accuses him of being willfully ignorant. Cyan reveals the kingdom attacked the Great Valley near the town about 20 years ago. A hooded figure gestures, declaring they released magic from the mountain tops to collect resources. Animals scatter as magic erupts, and the voice condemns the slaughter of creatures for self-interest. A determined voice vows never to forgive. The bearded dwarf says they don't want to get involved with the kingdom because the master kicked them out. The young man with a headband thinks they're talking about the kingdom's development of the Great Valley. Another dwarf tells the young man to shut up, and the young man asks about the master. The bearded dwarf says they're leaving after the transaction, and the young man asks if they can talk more at his mansion. A bearded dwarf spots an old man and exclaims he'll go to welcome him with delicious tea, meals, and even alcohol as an apology. The scene shifts to a large, fortified mansion. The dwarf near a wall tells someone he has a skilled carpenter with him, and the other person asks if he's fixing the walls. A young man with a headband waves and tells the young master he fixed the chair from yesterday. A visitor greets the young master, and the headbanded man notices a visitor, introducing him as Lugos the carpenter. Lugos looks on with a focused expression. A man sprints forward with a determined look, fists clenched. Behind him, two others watch. Below, a child with wide eyes stares in surprise. Lugos is running away as someone calls out, "Lugos, where are you going?" Another person shouts, "Wait," as Lugos dashes off. A shocked young man exclaims, "son," as an enraged older man with a beard shouts, "You get back here, you stupid son," and tackles him to the ground with sound effects emphasizing the impact. An older man tackles a struggling younger person who snarls, "Let me go." "Stupid old fart. I don't want to see your face." The older man fumes, "You caught had me you." Worried sick, onlookers including a suited man and a young uniformed person stare in confusion, the young one muttering, "What is happening?" A voice, soft with surprise, reflects, "I would have never imagined reuniting with you at a place like this." An older man with a beard thanks the feudal lord for taking care of his son. He remarks the boy is mixed blood. The feudal lord, surprised, asks if Lugos is also a dwarf. An older man jabs a finger at a younger man's stubble, scoffing, "Look at this stubble." The younger man, headbanded and wearing a fake beard, thinks his father once felt so ashamed he'd worn one. The older man shoves him, growling, "See, the fact that you can be so insensitive, that's what I hate about you." The younger man, sweating, snaps, "I left because I felt miserable about myself. And I'm not even a decent dwarf, that's right, I'm not human." A spiky-haired man laughs loudly, but a thought bubble reveals behind that smile was suffering. Beside him, a headbanded man, Lugos, stares away, his expression tight. A young person calls his name, and a close-up of a clenched fist hints at unspoken tension. The contrast between the laughter and the hidden pain hangs heavy as the moment lingers. Cyan's voice is steady, warm, dwarf or not. "It doesn't matter. Nothing changes about you." Lugos, the young man with the headband, stares up, his expression softening as he starts to speak, "Young master." Besides, the words hang, a bridge between past and present, between doubt and resolve. Cyan looks at the men, telling them when he was exiled they came with him without complaint. Whatever happens, they are his precious liegemen. One man HMPHS. The older man fumes, accusing the younger man of running away due to stubbornness. The younger man snaps back, denying failure, and the older man fires back, revealing he left because of the younger man's failed attempt at being a dad. A distressed child interjects, claiming they never cheated, just talked to a lady drunk, only for someone to shout they cheated on mom who left, and that's enough to call it cheating. Tension simmers as words clash between generations and guilt. A girl tries to calm two bickering characters. A troubled young man mutters he wanted to hear their stories, not this outcome. A voice asks, "Is that true?" as he touches his face and a bearded man points, surprised. Two mugs clink sharply, foam spraying. The older man, beard flaring, laughs and shouts, "You were so stupid for doing that." The younger man, spiky-haired, grins and replies, "Thanks to you and your stubbornness that I inherited." Their laughter mingles, a tangled mix of scold and warmth. He remarks that it didn't take long for the two to make up, all thanks to their love of alcohol. The man with glasses mentions that as long as his magical powers last, he can create drinks infinitely, calling the cup useful. The bearded man asks if he's talking about earth magic, and he inquires if it's true that dwarves can use magic by birth. A man explains they use earth magic to flatten the ground and build houses in the Great Valley, where everyone can use magic. He mentions magical creatures appear there, calling it a nice place. Another person is shocked to learn they live in the Great Valley, a place even the kingdom couldn't enter. A blonde-haired person looks on, seemingly thoughtful. Cyan, curious about the master mentioned, plans to investigate the Great Valley, thinking the dwarves will help. Below, two men sit with mugs, one bearded, the other muscular. Under a starry sky, a decrepit mansion looms. A smiling Cyan looks on, thinking it can wait. The next panel shows him speaking to two others, glad they got the blessing from their business partners and noting he led the transactions. One of them remarks they'd initially come for a business deal. Cyan apologizes for the suddenness, then stops a man from leaving. He asks to see the earth magic the man mentioned earlier. The man Tin stammers that he was drunk and doesn't remember, and another man glares at him, scolding him for opening his mouth again. He suggests doing it where there are no buildings around. Another agrees, having seen his powers. They move to an open area. A bearded man concentrates earth magic at work. Someone explains he's Godi, a top earth magic user among dwarves and a candidate for the next chief. A bearded man snarls, letting out a thunderous great wail. As sound effects roar around him, his face contorted with intensity. Several characters look up, their expressions intense, as zoom effects emphasize their focus. A blonde-haired person stares in awe, exclaiming W. Wow, as a group of dwarves demonstrates earth magic in a rocky landscape, with text declaring this is dwarf's earth magic. A blonde-haired person watches in awe as dwarves demonstrate earth magic, exclaiming it's amazing. An older man with a beard scolds him for taking credit, while another man shares a story about a noble showing him earth magic long ago, calling the current display far superior. He feels his world expanding ever since coming to Deserto. Now that he's seen them with his own two eyes, elves and dwarves, called demi-humans, don't exist only in writing anymore. And to witness their brilliant magic, it's more than he ever imagined. Cyan expresses his desire to investigate the Great Valley, hoping the dwarves will show him around when the time comes. He clarifies it's not for resource hunting or development, but to find out why the town's water dried up. The dwarves are surprised by his interest in the Great Valley. The Great Valley might be linked to Deserto's oasis drought. There's a chance investigating could revive the water. But my cup can't fix the root of the shortage. Will you help us? A bearded man vows to show gratitude and not threaten the Great Valley's peace. A younger person notes someone once had no self-confidence, mostly keeping to themselves, then mentions Lugos. A cheerful man with a beer mug says he'll follow the young master proudly, recalling the young master smiling at him. A bearded man calls Cyan an idiot, but admits he has a good eye. Cyan, blushing, says it's his job as a father to believe in him. They shake hands, and Cyan thanks the bearded man, happy to meet him. He thinks their paths wouldn't have crossed if magical creatures weren't outside. The girl with glasses speaks animatedly, claiming credit to the media and magical plants. Cyan tells her to stop putting words in his mouth. She greets him casually, asking what he's doing there. Another person runs up, exclaiming they have news for the young master, but Cyan interrupts, saying he doesn't have time for this. The girl with glasses exclaims that it's not about magical plants and urges Cyan to come with her. She pulls him as they dash away, with motion lines emphasizing their quick movement. A massive, menacing wolf looms, its gaze sharp. A man stands firm, fists clenched, ready to defend. Two others cling to each other, terror evident in their faces. The air crackles with tension as the confrontation unfolds. A menacing wolf-like creature looms, its eyes sharp and intense. Below, a character gasps, "What is this?" The air crackles with tension as the confrontation unfolds. His eyes widen, mouth falling open as he gasps, "Is this?" before the words catch in his throat. WH. What spills out, breath ragged. Below, a massive, snarling wolf-like creature looms, its presence crackling with menace. He staggers back, arms outstretched, as the beast bears down, tension coiling thick in the air. A massive, snarling wolf-like creature looms, its eyes sharp as it addresses the boy. "You must be the master of this land. Make yourself known." The boy, wide-eyed and sweating, stares up, breath-catching. A soft shiver runs through him as the creature's presence crackles with intensity. Cyan Burdry declares, "I am Sianburdry," and states, "the feudal lord of this Erimos territory." The wolf Siva acknowledges, the master of the dungeon, then comments, "Huh. You know how to show your manners." "I am Siva." Cyan stares, wide-eyed, thinking dungeon. A wolf-like creature's intense eye fills the next panel, declaring, "The place you all call the ruin." Below, the creature stands over two trembling figures who stammer if it's here to stop them from hunting magical creatures. A final panel shows a crumbling ruin, with the creature stating it created everything, including the magical beasts, claiming, "I suppose I am the creator." Tension crackles as the creature asserts its dominion over the land. Cyan's eyes widen as a wolf-like creature, with a glare, accuses him of using magical creature's blood. The creature declares it doesn't care about trivial things, and Cyan stares in shock, sweat dripping down his face. A wolf-like creature sniffs the air, declaring it smells blood from the land. A stammering character reacts with fear. The wolf looms, noting the group has again found value in using magical creature blood. A character steps forward, vowing not to allow such folly. A close-up shows a character admitting they used the blood for fertilizer, while another wide-eyed character wonders why the wolf tolerates the hunting despite the blood use. Tension crackles as the creature's presence confronts their actions. The wolf barks, "You just said." Cyan stares, voice steady, "To enrich this barren land. Otherwise, Deserto will move into decline." He steps forward, adding urgency. If so, will you not allow us to use their blood? Also, I heard the magical creatures inside the ruin will respawn after some time. That hunting magical creatures is trivial. A bead of sweat glistens on his brow as he waits. The wolf's maw crashes open, roaring, silence. I know very well that your greed will not stop there. The wolf-like creature speaks, about 100 years ago when I was still young. Cyan's face tightens with shock, thinking hunted. All of the magical creatures. The creature continues, you humans hunted all of the magical creatures on this land. Cyan's eye widens, sweat beading as he wonders, is he talking about the great subjugation? Tension crackles as the creature reveals a dark past of human greed. A figure in a hooded cloak stands on rocks, gesturing forward, declaring that humans invaded the land to take the blood of magical creatures. Armored figures with swords advance, surrounded by fallen beasts and flying monsters. A fierce eye fills the next panel, accompanied by a voice questioning, why would I accept you, who has the same intentions as those back then? Tension crackles between the approaching figures and the unseen threat. Cyan's eyes widen in shock as he realizes the kingdom invaded the Great Valley 20 years ago and attacked Deserto before that. He clutches his chest, thinking he can't stand down if he wants to save Deserto and its people. Cyan shouts he'll give his word to take only the minimum magical creature blood, unlike the kingdom, and face the creature head-on. A large wolf-like beast roars, threatening to chew his neck if he tramples mercy. A girl determined sweating stands by while another exclaims eek, as she's grabbed looking scared. Cyan steps forward, hand over his heart, apologizing as a member of the kingdom for past greed. He warns the wolf-like creature about others potentially invading the ruin for magical creature blood, comparing it to the harm done to the Great Valley. The creature listens intently as Cyan speaks. Cyan stands firm, declaring he'll use everything in his power to protect the wolf-like creature. The creature listens intently as Cyan's resolve shines through. A wolf-like creature roars and Cyan, sweat dripping, raises his arm in a defensive stance, exclaiming in shock as the creature's anger fills the scene. The shadowed figure snarls that humans are ill-mannered, accusing the speaker of belittling them as weak. Cyan, wide-eyed and sweating, shouts he didn't mean it. He believes crimes should be righted by his own race, but curses inwardly as it backfires. The wolf-like creature looms, growling that the speaker is aggravating, yet pauses, its intensity hanging heavy. The wolf-like creature declares it would be convenient to use humans, and offers Cyan a deal to be its soldier. Cyan, surprised, exclaims test. The creature scoffs, stating it won't take a brat's word for face value and will present a test instead. The wolf-like creature tells Cyan to come to the very bottom of its dungeon. If he's powerful enough to reach the bottom level, it'll accept him as a pawn, and it finds the idea of watching him deal with magical creatures entertaining. Cyan hears that creatures grow stronger the lower the level in the ruin, specifically the bottom level. He resolves to show every ounce of strength, thinking of sacred tools, knowledge, and contacts he can use. His determined eyes reflect his resolve. Cyan steps forward, voice steady. I have some questions. May I? The wolf-like creature shadowed tilts its head. What is it? Cyan's eyes narrow, resolve hardening. How many levels in total are there in the dungeons? The wolf's gaze sharpens. 10. I understand, Cyan murmurs. I will show you pity and tell you. 10 levels, the wolf growls, tail flicking. Cyan leans forward, voice firm. And one more thing, where at the lowest level will you be? The wolf pauses, ears twitching, a question mark hovering in the air. The wolf-like creature in a grand hall with a central throne says it will be on that throne if Cyan fails the test. Cyan, thoughtful, murmurs, I see. His determined face tightens, sweat beading, as he declares he'll bring catastrophe if the creature doesn't let go of past ill manners and greed. The wolf-like creature states it will give Cyan a month to reach it, warning that failure means seeing it as such. It vanishes with a poof, leaving Cyan and others shocked. Stupid young master. You've shortened my life by 500 years. Aichi disappeared. A distressed figure holds a child as the words hang. Besides, it's not as if I did it without consideration. There would be no future for Deserto if I didn't take on his challenge. A smirk tugs at the speaker's lips. I will prove to him that I am a man of my word. We have some time. Determination hardens in their eyes. He reassures her the test allows using the blood, and she asks about potions. Ms. Media connects the cup to drowning the ruin, then wonders how to reach the lowest level. A thought runs through his mind. Their powers are crucial and they should hurry back to the manor. A bearded man asks if Cyan is alright, having waited for his return. Cyan tells them about the ruin and asks for cooperation, and the man says they agreed, mentioning it would be sad if the town no longer existed and asking for alcohol and a good meal in exchange. Cyan smirks, declaring they might take the shortest route. A time skip after a few days. Feet trudge along a path, the sound of movement filling the air. The time has finally come. Cyan and his companions stand before the ancient ruin, resolve hardening in their eyes. "We're coming, Siva," he mutters, ready to face the challenge ahead. A wolf-like creature twitches, ears perking. It declares it seems the brat and his people are in the dungeon. Its voice carries the weight of observation as it detects Cyan and his companions within the ancient ruin's depths. A wolf-like creature scoffs, certain Cyan will never arrive and dismissing his claim to protect it. It notes strong magical creatures run rampant, and the labyrinth below the middle level is elaborate, having spent years hardening the dungeon with magic. Chuckling, it vows to show Cyan its greatness. Some tens of minutes later, a wolf-like creature barks with its mouth wide open. A character grins widely, exclaiming, "I made it." The wolf looms closer and the character trails off with a faint, "Why?" A wolf-like creature snarls, its jaws wide. Below it leaps, cracking the earth and roars, "You idiot." A crack splits the roof, spiraling downward. Who punched through? Siva and Cyan's group stands below, the question hanging heavy. Cyan and his companions are navigating a dungeon. Using dwarf earth magic and the cup's water to soften the ground, they encounter a great wall. The ground rumbles and someone scoffs at the situation, questioning the dungeon's dignity. A figure tumbles through the air, surrounded by swirling smoke, crying out in horror. Below, a young man stares wide-eyed, muttering in shock. Beside him, a bearded companion urges them to flee, pointing at the smoke with a worried shout. The young man and the bearded man watch, alarmed as the smoke billows. A wolf-like creature coughs, collapsing to the ground, its body racked with convulsions as gasps escape its maw. The sound of its ragged breathing mingles with the crackle of the shattered stone beneath it, painting a picture of exhaustion or injury. The young man stares, eyes wide, as he recognizes the bandana. Could it be? He swallows, sweat beading, as the desert dog from the oasis lies before him, its magic lifting. "Oh no," he mutters. Facing a hooded figure, he asks sharply if I had failed. "Were you planning on hurting the people?" The other turns, voice calm. "I have one question." A wolf-like creature lies still, a hand on its head as words spill. "I made a promise that time." "I can't do that." "If I reach you," it lifts its head, voice tight. "No, I was never going to. It was just a threat." "Is this enough?" "Just leave me be." A young person leans in, eyes bright, declaring, "I will protect you." The wolf still feels the touch as resolve settles. He reaches out to touch the wolf-like creature, apologizing for destroying its home and promising to fix it. The creature, surprised, responds that dwarves can do it. Later, he tells the creature there's someone it needs to see. A character with a bandana asks the wolf-like creature about the person who gave it the bandana. The wolf-like creature looks on, and the character's face is shown with a determined and happy expression. The girl reaches out, calling Doggy. We've met again, as she stands before a wolf-like creature, Batala, who wags happily. A boy stands nearby, smiling. Batala thinks the girl knows his sweet spots, nuzzling into her touch. The voice inside Batala can't be heard, but his joy is clear. Batala lies on his back, enjoying belly rubs. A young man explains he plans to act as a regular dog in front of others, using telepathy to talk, to keep his true identity hidden. Another person notes they saw him again while investigating the ruin, and his name is Siva. A girl hears that Siva, a familiar of the dungeon master, is going to visit the town more often and is overjoyed. She expresses her happiness and affection by holding and cuddling a small dog-like creature, while another person looks on with a smile. Cyan asks, "You want the blood of the magical creature?" The wolf-like Siva huffs, "What?" "Yes." So dignified, unlike how he currently looks. Cyan grins, holding a small wolf. "Thank you, Siva." Siva looks up, declaring, "If you truly are going to protect me, I will permit you to hunt the magical creatures as before." Cyan's wide eyes shine with happiness. Cyan, holding a small wolf, tells the girl he hunted magical creatures while investigating and caught quite a few, thinking they should be held. The girl looks at him in surprise. Two people strain to push a cart loaded with a large bound creature, its eyes marked with X's, as rumbling sounds fill the air. Nearby, pots and bottles sit, with sharp sound effects underscoring the scene's tension. A bustling scene unfolds, with people moving about a market or eatery. Some carry goods, others interact, and children play, creating a lively, energetic atmosphere. Tables are set with food, and the air hums with activity. A large, sparkly piece of meat fills the top of the page, making someone gasp, "Whoa." Below, a braided character leans in, grinning, and calls out, "Look at this." To a companion beside them, their excitement clear. The light-haired character grins, stating they hunted magical creatures while investigating and will count on the other for the next hunt. They add that the group should have invited them if going hunting, noting it's twice the usual amount. Continuing, they mention the ones who helped this time, then a sound effect brings in a group of dwarves. One dwarf asks if those are dwarves, and the character remarks they were surprised at first but now consider them good buds. A group of dwarves cheer as a bearded man asks to pour sob oil into a barrel. A young man with wide eyes thinks they must thank Mr. Beard and his people for the feast, then resolves for new friendship with the dwarves under a cloudy sky. He raises a mug in a cheer. A chef presents a sizzling diced steak of a magical creature with 3 sauces, making onlookers gasp. A group bickers playfully over a chair, then laughs. Someone mentions a creature, and a girl offers to let it try the chair. A wolf-like creature sniffs as 2 people crouch, amazed by the number of magical creature samples. The boy smiles, saying the place has gotten even more lively. Beside him, the girl chuckles, holding a bowl. A ping sounds and he turns, only to see the bowl empty. Text declares a part of the chalice's power is now available. They've met the requirement. A girl's eyes widen in shock as she watches a bowl of ingredients vanish with a whoosh, exclaiming, "This is," as various items like morning tea and sugar water float away. "Father," the cry echoes through the Farrison residence in the royal capital, sharp and urgent. A loud bang cracks the air. Below, a mustached man sits at a desk, scowling and barks, "Where is the fire?" A hand slams down on a document, bang, splitting the air. "What is the meaning of this?" A girl's voice, sharp with defiance, cuts through. "There is no need for that. I am already betrothed to Mr. Cyan." Across the desk, a mustached man reads, unyielding. It's self-explanatory. "Your engagement has been set." The mustached man scoffs, declaring he's scrapped the engagement with the useless one and dismisses Cyan as the brat of the Birdries. A woman gasps, her voice cracking as she stammers, "WI," but he cuts her off, sharp and unyielding. "You do not need to know." Helen snaps, "You just keep your mouth shut and do as I say." A figure to her left declares, "You are my pawn." Below, Helen looks distressed as the same figure calls, "My sweet daughter," then Helen. Cyan Birdry notes a month has passed since he completed the Siva dungeon. A maid stands at his door announcing it's almost time. He knocks, she bids him enter. He thanks her as he opens a book, the moment hanging with quiet purpose. Cyan turns, a determined smile on his face, and shouts, "I'm coming." The words carry purpose, his posture radiating resolve as he steps forward. A hand stirs a bowl of sugar starch syrup, with a voice noting it's doing well and more people are returning for it. A boy with bandages on his face smiles, happy about the success, while another person in the background reacts cheerfully. A man gapes, exclaiming he didn't know the function as a bowl overflows. A boy in a uniform smiles, explaining he's improved the sugar starch syrup quality, making it purer. A hand taps yes on a screen offering to use 30 points of the people's supply to improve water. The boy holds a cup and the man reacts. The boy's eyes widen, surprised by how delicious it's become, then his face hardens with resolve. Tarjal is thrilled as the sugar starch syrup maintains its flavor and purity, making it more appealing. He shakes hands with a customer, hoping to continue doing business with their Deserto products. A man with bandages starts to speak, and a younger person looks up. A man in a hat asks the younger person to say hello to their family, and the younger person agrees. The younger person stands before a large, cleaner building, noting how much has changed in 2 months. They mention Lugos, the town's carpenters, and more, with the other responding that it's thanks to many people's help. Using knowledge from building in the Great Valley, the manor house repair finished quickly with Mr. Beard and the dwarves. A man with a bandage notes the town has changed too. Once a deserted place waiting to die, now lively with kids playing. The townspeople express deep gratitude to Cyan, who humbly states he was just doing his duty as lord. He extends a hand, proposing they work together for Deserto's advancement. They shake hands and later, Cyan waves goodbye as the town thrives. Cyan grips the cup, brow furrowed, as he thinks he should try its new function for Deserto's advancement, yet he still can't grasp it. He's seen the cup since the Harvest Festival, and now a voice tells him a part of the chalice's power is now his, that he's met the requirement. With a sharp asterisk whoosh asterisk, the cup's movement jolts him, his eyes widening in surprise. A prompt appears, would you like to create God's cup of sugar starch syrup using 1,000 happiness points of the people, with yes and no options. Below, Cyan stares at the cup, confused, thinking he can't understand it no matter how many times he looks. Cyan swipes at a screen, noting the option that uses the least points. He leans over a cup, muttering it's called God's cup, but not the same as the chalice. A prompt appears, create a God's cup of water using 400 happiness points. He decides to test it, thinking is water. Staring at his 1126 points, he hesitates, losing 400 is a fair amount. Indecision creeps in. Cyan points, his mind racing as he wonders if using precious points on just water is worth it, and if he'll run short when needed. He reacts with a start AH, and someone calls, Mr. Cyan. The panel shows him from behind as the other person faces him. Cyan panics as he realizes he clicked the option to create a God's cup of water using 400 happiness points. He worries if it was worth it, having worked hard to gain the points. Someone calls him and he looks up, still troubled. Isla holds a small animal close, her eyes wide with a mix of concern and resolve. Below, her face tightens with hesitation as she stammers, Mr. Cyan. Batala hurries to deliver something, calling out the name. The person reacts, denying anything went wrong. Batala worries they made a mistake, clutching a small animal. The other smiles, explaining they were testing the cup's new function. Batala arrived when they raised their voice. Cyan sweats, wide-eyed, muttering he's in a dilemma and doesn't want a sweet girl to get upset. He tells someone he's explained to Batala about the God's cup. His face hardens with resolve. Standing, he gestures and a girl asks where the God's cup is. He admits he made it but can't find it. A bear-like creature with a bow around its neck gasps, clutching a cup. A hand snatches the cup and someone exclaims, "Thank you, Siva. You're so smart." A person nearby tilts their head thinking maybe it's that. A girl exclaims in concern as a small animal yelps. A boy reacts with surprise as a splash occurs near a creature, his expression one of shock. Batala apologizes as a small animal shakes, water dripping from the God's cup. Cyan, wide-eyed, exclaims water came out. Batala calls out, asking if she can have that power. Cyan stares, shocked, wondering if this is the cup's power, then holds it thoughtful. A girl asks if Cyan used magical powers to make the God's cup produce water. He admits he didn't have any and explains it's just a cup that only produces water. A prompt appears asking if he wants to create a God's cup of water using 400 happiness points. Cyan stares wide-eyed as a screen displays God's cup water with 98 magical power. He mutters, "Is this skill board of God's cup?" Cyan stares at the God's cup, its magical power shown as 98, then 97, then 95. He mutters in confusion as water pours out, unsure of what's happening. A girl looks on as the cup's power fluctuates. Cyan watches as Batala uses the God's cup to pour water, realizing the cup has magical powers that consume more power the more water it pours. He worries if using 400 happiness points for a single-use cup that becomes unusable when power reaches 0 is cost-effective, and considers transferring his magical powers. Cyan holds the God's cup, flames flaring behind him. Below, text shows God's cup water with 100 magical powers. He exclaims he can transfer magical powers and a yes follows. Cyan smiles, explaining the cup can produce liquids without him being physically present. Batala beams, thrilled it can be reused if magical power is refilled. A panel shows 2 cups, with text noting it could be used more freely if a point is resolved, but only Cyan can refill the power. Batala looks down, wishing she had magical powers, feeling she could have been more useful. The girl thanks the boy warmly, insisting she only talked to him, but he argues her help was what let him understand the god's cup. She blushes and he trails off with a soft beauty. A girl with a headband blushes and smiles, saying she's so happy and thanking someone. She comments on the spring of life, and another person teases her for being young, making her protest. Batala waves to Cyan, who waves back with a small dog at his side. The sky darkens. Siva tells Cyan Batala has no magical powers, and he needs to speak to him. Cyan is surprised Siva isn't with Batala, then Siva asks about his knowledge of magical powers. Cyan explains that magic and sacred items are used by humans, royals, magical beasts, dwarves, elves, and demi-humans. He tells the wolf-like creature to listen, and when it reacts with surprise, he corrects it, saying it's rather wrong. Cyan states that no matter the race, magic itself is possessed by every human race. In Ensha's private room at Vassal's lodge, Cyan knocks and enters, saying he's there to check on her. Ensha, lying in bed, coughs and blushes as she looks up at him. Cyan visits Ensha in her room where she's bedridden with a cold, apologizing for being a bother. He reassures her she's better now, and she mentions still coughing. Flashbacks show she stayed up all night researching magical beasts for their hunt, getting overexcited and falling ill. A group of people cheerfully prepare for the hunt, with text noting it was a few days ago. Cyan brings something to Ensha, who tells him to rest as the ruin isn't going anywhere, sounding disappointed. Cyan shows her drawings of magical creatures from the dungeon, and Ensha blushes as she looks at them, remembering their trip. Cyan looks at drawings of magical creatures, noting they're amazing. He's told Batala did them, and he resolves to thank her. Cyan looks at a drawing of a monster, recognizing it as one he drew secretly. Another person reacts with fear, unable to guess what such a creature is like. Cyan holds a small dog-like creature named Siva, smiling widely. The other person mentions having one more souvenir. Cyan holds a small dog and argues it's a genuine magical creature built from a dungeon. The girl with glasses corrects him, saying it's a deserto dog, not magical. The dog, Siva, declares itself ruler of the fiery sands and threatens to destroy the town, leaving the girl startled. A deer-like creature speaks, blaming Cyan. A girl with glasses holds her head, amazed she hears a voice in her head, while a boy beside her notes a strange title. A smiling boy says he'll leave the notebook in Siva, hoping the girl gets better. A chef is reminded to not forget his promise about Povel's new snack. The girl with glasses with Siva calls out Mr. Cyan and thanks him, closing the door. Cyan with a dog is excited and talks about Siva. Siva barks, surprised by Cyan's hand movements. Cyan admits he can't believe common people have magical powers. Another person disagrees, saying he's quite wrong. Cyan declares that townspeople, his subordinates, and any human race are all equally equipped with magical powers. A voice of disbelief exclaims it's impossible, as Cyan stands with a small dog. Cyan argues that all humans, including townspeople and subordinates, have magical powers. A deer-like creature comments that he has more power than others, and Cyan explains magical powers are impartial. He mentions being trained by his master and that commoners are taught using magic, until nearly empty is simple yet effective. A hooded person remarks that's a good idea for a nobleman. Cyan thinks about a mysterious master who showed up in his garden, taught him things, and he doesn't know her full name or noble blood. The dog Siva comments she seems suspicious. Cyan reflects on her not mentioning magical powers, but realizes she once told him everyone has them. A flashback to 10 years ago at the Birdry residence has a voice saying, "Listen here, boy." Cyan argues that nobles and commoners aren't that different, just status and circumstances. The hooded figure says when he understands, the people will be on his side. Cyan thinks back, realizing the figure said the same thing in a roundabout way. A fox-like creature explains magical essence surrounds all living beings, taken in and transformed into magical powers that circulate through bodies to sustain life. A panel shows a person with a flame-like aura, then a close-up of a magical beast's meat, noting it doesn't rot as long as magical power remains. A character listens intently, processing the information. Cyan and Siva stand in a desert. Cyan muses that Deserto people survived on insufficient water and veggies by taking magical powers from magical creatures. Siva huffs and agrees. Cyan exclaims he understands how important he is, thanks to Siva and magical creatures, and that Deserto still stands. Siva responds with a simple aha, and Cyan smiles, finding it amazing. Siva the dog speaks to Cyan, bringing up humans' glorification of the goddess statue, and magical powers. Cyan listens, curious, as Siva asks why humans build statues of the goddess and pray to it. Cyan stands with Siva in a town, his eyes wide with realization. He thinks about what Siva told him, linking it to his questions from the royal capital. Coming to this town, he's learned much that contradicts what he was taught, feeling the lies he'd been told. Batala knocks on a door and enters. A girl greets him, surprised to see him. He hands her a gift, thanking her for something from yesterday. He mentions there's something else he wanted to give her. A girl expresses relief that Ensha liked the drawing, saying Ensha was thrilled by its educational value. Another person smiles and the girl hugs the note in pencils, vowing to treasure them. The girl asks what Cyan wants to ask. Cyan smiles and says he was wondering if she could draw a woman for him again soon, feeling bad for asking so soon. The girl is surprised and quickly says she couldn't. Cyan asks if it's of a woman he likes. The girl eagerly offers to help Cyan. Cyan asks if it's okay to tell her more once she's finished. The girl seems surprised and happy, noting Cyan looks really happy. Cyan mentions it's a practice run. A girl with a headband asks someone to model for her, her eyes wide and a sweat drop on her face. The person she's asking looks surprised, with a huh coming from them. Cyan asks the girl if she's going to draw him, mentioning they even moved locations. The girl, headband and necklace, looks up from her notebook. She eagerly says yes, wanting to draw him, Mr. Cyan. Cyan seems surprised and asks if she's sure. The girl confirms, her eyes wide with excitement. Cyan sits under a structure, watching as someone draws. The drawer tells them to stay still, not move their face. The person asks if done, and the drawer says not yet. A girl suggests taking a break and offers a drink from a bucket. Cyan, sitting beside her, asks if the bucket is okay to use. The girl apologizes, but Cyan says it's fine and he'd love a sip. A girl with a headband grins, holding a mirror. She presses it to her face, then leans across a table to hand a cup to a boy. He takes a sip and she watches, eyes wide, a small sweat drop on her forehead. Her grin softens as he drinks, warm and eager. Cyan, holding a drawing, exclaims, "Whoa, and this is amazing." The artist, blushing, says she's still not finished. Cyan remarks the subject is much better looking than him. The girl with a headband tells Cyan to go back to his original pose. Cyan asks what's still going on. Cyan thinks his plan might work out. That evening, Cyan says he never wants to be alone with that woman again. Batala finishes a drawing and tells Cyan it's because he gave great directions. Cyan exclaims it's amazing, drawn just from his description. Batala asks who the beautiful woman in the drawing is, leaving Cyan with a thoughtful expression. Cyan looks at a drawing and realizes the woman in it is the real goddess. The person with him reacts in surprise. A girl asks if the goddess statue they know is fake. Another girl offers food, saying it's delicious. Cyan, deep in thought, begins to reveal what he's been questioning since being in the royal capital, wondering if the goddess in the drawing is the real one. Cyan stares at depictions of the goddess, noting the statues look different from the one he met. He wonders about the reason but doubts anyone will believe him. Cyan thinks Siva's words about everyone having magical powers connect to his question. If spreading lies about the goddess statues, maybe they were made to look different on purpose. Batala addresses him, asking for his understanding of magical powers. Cyan explains that magical powers aren't just for nobles, demi-humans, or magical creatures. Every living thing has them. The other person looks skeptical, asking if that's true. Cyan tells the other person there's a reason commoners don't receive goddess blessings like magic or sacred items. The person with him thinks, then mentions a statue in the royal capital temple's coming-of-age ritual chamber that looks exactly like the real goddess. Cyan kneels, thinking about praying to the goddess statue in the coming-of-age ritual chamber. A girl in a long dress explains only the real goddess grants blessings, and the one that looks like her is the only real one. Another girl with a headband realizes commoners pray to fake statues and haven't received blessings. Cyan thinks royalty and nobles spread the lie that only they can monopolize the goddess's power. He believes everyone should have equal blessings, and for the town's development he has a plan. Cyan declares he wants to break free from all the lies they believed in. He asks someone to carve a statue using a sketch, thanking them. The other person, surprised, asks if it's the real goddess, noting Cyan seems more determined than thought. Cyan affirms he met her twice, giving his word. A woman remarks the drawing of the goddess doesn't match any statues. Another agrees. A man smiles, trusting the young master. Cyan thanks him, ready to share his plan. A month later, in a grand room, a man sits surrounded by glistening produce, marveling at how juicy and delicious they are. Beside him, another person asks how they taste. A butler stands nearby with a tray. A boy with a bandage on his face grins, declaring, "Mr. Cyan, you're exceptional," beside a pile of glistening produce. Someone marvels, "I can't believe it's been made here," as another panel shows fruit and vegetables, explained to grow where water and rich earth thrive. A blonde boy gasps at a strawberry, thinking he's so hyper. "I couldn't have done it without everyone's help." Smiling, he vows, "I want to one day make Deserto a green land. I made fertilizer fit for desert land." Cyan holds a cup, saying he can make it now and it might change the water situation. The other man asks what he means. Cyan reveals it's called God's Cup, and the other man is surprised, noting it's simple for such a grand name, and asks if it's a paper cup. Cyan agrees. A man pours water from a cup, exclaiming it can produce water even without magical powers until his powers run out. Another person, surprised, realizes it possesses his magical powers and finds it useful. A young man with a smile asks another person about their magical power and invites them to come along. The scene shifts to show a statue in an open area, and the other person looks on, seemingly surprised. The companion tells Cyan it's the town's goddess. Cyan asks about the stone statue, and the companion notes they're in the central square. A noisy sound makes Cyan turn his head. He looks at the goddess statue and remarks she's quite small. Tarjal stands facing a group of townsfolk. They ask what he's doing there if a statue was built, and explain they came because the feudal lord asked. A boy with bandages on his face looks up, asking what's going on. A girl smiles at him. He runs towards a woman, calling out, "My lord," and introducing her as the feudal lord. The boy thanks everyone for coming, and the people cheer. Cyan stands beside a newly built goddess statue, declaring it will symbolize the land. The crowd below is surprised, noting the statue doesn't match others and questioning the feudal lord's absence. Cyan Berdry declares the previous goddess they prayed to was false, urging them to pray to the new statue instead. He vows it will prevent the town from running out of water. A boy with a bandage on his face looks around, seemingly taking in the new goddess statue. A girl with a headband stands nearby, observing the crowd. The townsfolk appear surprised and unsure about the sudden statue, with some muttering about it being too much to take in. A girl with a headband kneels before a goddess statue holding a pot, clasping her hands in prayer. A close-up shows her hands on the pot and her focused expression as she prays. Water pours from a pot held by a hand. A character wonders if the Lord did nothing and if the goddess heard the prayer. Townsfolk shout "water" and exclaim in awe. A bandaged-faced boy notices water pouring and wonders if the god's cup is in the pot. He looks confused about the source of magical power as another person invites him to come with them. Cyan and Siva the dog are having a conversation. Cyan asks why God makes people pray to a statue of themselves. He explains that praying to a statue depicting God is an act of giving a part of their own magic to God. Cyan mentions that because Siva taught him, he was able to rethink the difference in the appearance of the goddess statue, which helped him come up with the idea of turning on God's cup by the people's prayers. Cyan had Lugos make the goddess statue. He prayed to it first, then brought his liegemen to pray, noting that while individual prayer affects magic, little collective prayer ensures it won't run out. A group of people kneel and pray. A group of people gathers around a newly built goddess statue. One person with bandages on their face looks up in surprise, exclaiming they're so surprised they have no words and that by praying, even they can use magical powers. Another person thinks this is how it should have been essentially. A girl with a headband waves and suggests giving thanks to the goddess statue, while a boy beside her looks on. The crowd gathers around the new statue, and she holds something close, smiling as they prepare to offer their gratitude. After the new goddess statue is unveiled, Cyan and Tarjal are at the prototype garden to give him a harvest vest. Suddenly, a boy runs in shouting that there's a monster on the farm, and Cyan reacts with a shocked expression. A woman in a lab coat stands between two large spiral-shaped plants. A character with a nervous expression says AH. The woman remarks, "It looks like there's more than before, Ms." Media and the other person stammers, "That's well. How should I explain it?" The woman in a lab coat touches a spiral-shaped plant, while a boy with a nervous expression says OH. Another boy suggests it's a guard, not a pet. The girl with glasses offers to box the plants and put them in the horse carriage, asking for more time. The other boy, almost done harvesting, asks if the vegetables he asked for are ready. A bandaged boy stares at spiral-shaped plants, then turns to thank Ms. Media, who tells him she's done. He beams, surrounded by sparkles, while she furrows her brow, confused about rewarding them. A worm-like plant thuds across the ground. Jason, bandaged-faced, gapes in shock. Beside him, another person stammers that the plant is running. The girl with glasses touching the plant asks Jason why he's in such a rush. A messenger informs the young master that dwarves have arrived carrying big luggage. The young master is surprised, thinking there was still time until the next transaction. Another person reminds him that dwarves are their good trading partners. The young master, wide-eyed, asks if the rare dwarves are in town. The young man with a wide grin exclaims about the great opportunity, while another with sparkles in his eyes begs to be introduced to the arriving dwarves. They all dash off with tentacles thrashing behind them, as the scene shifts to a line of trees. Tentacles thrash in the woods as a young man stares in shock. He tells the dwarves beside him that a vine creature ran toward them upon entering the woods, sounding traumatized. One dwarf asks how long it's been, and another greets him as feudal lord young master. An older man with a beard declares he has something to show, noting great timing. A boy gasps in shock, and a girl with glasses hums in response. Hands pull sharply. An elf girl kneels, dazed. An elf-like figure with pointy ears faces a shocked boy in formal clothes. The elf mutters water, and the boy stammers. Close-up of the boy's wide eyes as he thinks about her pointy ears and features, then gasps, "Can it be?" The young man, shocked to see an elf, realizes she's asking for water. He mutters about meeting an elf, then the dwarf beside him notes elves aren't rare. The elf drinks greedily, and the young man thinks about dwarves being common. Ms. Media calls Jason, Kansen, and Hansen. The boy suggests returning to the manor house to talk. Jason, Kansen, and Hansen are carried by a worm-like plant, with Jason and Hansen protesting they can walk on their own. A boy stands before a manor, confused by the presence of dwarves and an elf, wondering where Tarjal is. An elf lies asleep in a bed. A woman administers a magic power recovery potion, saying the elf will be fine. A man is confused about how an elf ended up there, noting he's only ever seen elves leave their territory in emergencies. Another person remarks they've only read about elves. A bearded man tells a young man they found an elf half buried in sand, unconscious, and brought her to town, stuffing her in a bag. He mentions she took his liquor and gulped it down, shocking the young man who asks if it's dangerous. The bearded man complains to the boy that the elf drank all his precious alcohol. The boy, worried about the elf's well-being, notes elves have long lifespans. He wonders why the elf was unconscious as he looks at her. A girl with a headband tells a story about her grandmother nursing a young, unconscious elf back to health, mentioning the elf had long, pointy ears. The elf, now awake, winks at her. The girl looks thoughtful, wondering if it correlates with Batala's story. Cyan Berdry, the feudal lord of Erimo's territory, greets the elf awake, introducing himself. The elf, unfamiliar with Erimo's territory, remarks she's never heard of it. Cyan explains it lies across the Great Valley near the forest where elves live. The elf, awake and speaking, mentions knowing about the town in the desert called Deserto and its delicious alcohol. The young man looks surprised, asking about the alcohol. The elf states she's thirsty and wishes for her first of the day. The elf confirms indeed. The boy asks, "First drink?" "You don't mean alcohol, do you?" She leans in, stating, "We the great elves will die if we run out of alcohol." The boy, wide-eyed, exclaims, "What? Is that true?" beside a girl watching. The boy watches an elf drink greedily, thinking she's strange. She claims it's brilliant to have everyone bring her alcohol on command, and when he asks if she'll die without it, she says nope. He questions her earlier claim of being the great elf, trailing off in confusion. The elf corrects the young man, stating great elf is the proper term, not high elf, and explains great elves are the rarest among elves, often drunk when speaking to humans. The young man, wide-eyed, asks what's wrong, and a text box clarifies, great elf turned into high elf as he looks thoughtful. An elf on a bed mutters that her magical powers will go berserk if she doesn't drink alcohol, then holds a mug, feeling warm. A boy, looking worried, hopes she's a minority of great elves. A gloved hand reaches for a mug, perhaps to get her alcohol. An elf, looking cold, exclaims cold while holding a mug. Below, two characters watch with shocked expressions as shine is written, capturing a moment of tension. The elf drinks from a large container, declaring ice-cold Sabo ales are common knowledge. The character with glasses is shocked, thinking elves only use wind magic. The young man, confused, wonders if it was ice magic, then mentions hearing about great elves using magic. The boy exclaims in wonder that the elf's magic is great, commenting on its incredible skill that only cools from the inside. The elf explains this is the best way to cool an ale, stating how she uses her magic is another matter. The elf demonstrates her ice magic, creating a small ice object. A boy remarks he's seen his sister, blessed with ice magic, flaunt it many times but never expected such a power difference with humans. Another character notes among great elves using magic other than wind, this one is very good at ice magic. Two other elves are shown, one with a braid. The elf with short hair uses ice magic on mugs, catching the boy's eye. He wonders what other ice magic she can do. The elf with braid, noticing, says she's been to this town before and had the delicious alcohol. The boy, eyes widening, realizes it's Deserto. The elf sips greedily from her mug, the same one Batala's grandmother saved. A thudding noise grows closer. Batala looks up, frowning, as the sound grows louder. Then a hand slams hard against a door, the impact sharp and sudden. A woman with a braid bursts through a door, her expression startled. Below, a boy shrinks back, a text bubble exclaiming, "Who is SHE?" A girl and another boy stare on, their faces etched with surprise. Chapter 17, New Resident. A woman stares wide-eyed as an elf smiles and says, "You're officially old now, Nina." Nina, shocked, asks who she is, and the elf replies, "I'm Flurit." "It's been a while," Nina reacts with surprise, realizing she's been forgotten. An elf teases a woman, commenting on her stunted growth and that she still drinks only alcohol. The woman jokes the elf is still small. A young man in the background looks surprised. The elf winks, glad to have lived long and never expecting to see the woman again. A maid asks the young master if the woman they know each other. A girl with a braid and headband gasps, "Grandma." Beside her, a maid states, "MS. Batala has arrived." The girl turns to a boy, explaining, "She is the grandmother told you about before." "Yes," and the maid adds, "So this person is your grandmother." The boy, Cyan, exclaims Batala, and thanks her for coming, his expression one of recognition. The girl with a headband explains her grandmother burst in because she found out about the elf, and she was in a rush. The elf, Flurit, mentions she stopped by Batala's house on her way back from the erosion control forest to tell her about the elf. The girl adds her grandmother lives with her uncle, and Flurit notes she didn't know it was her grandmother since she's never met her before but has visited the house a few times. They suggest sitting down for a catch-up in a nicely decorated room. Flurit greets Nina, apologizing for being restless. Nina thanks her for taking care of Batala, who often helps her. Flurit mentions it's hot, and Nina asks if she's unconscious again, with Flurit responding simply. Flurit explains she got lost playing in a river last time, not that she planned it. She left a note and isn't going back to her elf village, admitting she's not fully prepared for her escape. Someone asks why she left home, and she responds with her eyes closed. Fleurit explains she ran away because she didn't want to choose any of the men in her village, had to pick one from a conference full of losers, and only hiccuped because of a large rock in the Great Valley, dropping her map and falling unconscious. The boy mentions hearing about magical creatures in the Great Valley and crossing the bridge alone. The elf with braids says great elves aren't attacked by them and that she found a big flying one. The boy looks surprised. An elf raises her fist and declares she's going on an adventure to find love, comparing herself to great elves of old. Below, a boy and a girl with a headband watch, the girl smiling. The elf, now looking less enthusiastic, mutters that things aren't going as planned. The girl with a headband asks what Fleurit has planned now, and Fleurit starts to speak. An older woman tells Fleurit she can't stay alone and that the house belongs to her son's family, asking where she'll live. Fleurit responds and the older woman yells at her, bringing up elves not meddling with humans. Fleurit declares she wants to talk to a variety of people for love, and left her home rules behind. She complains elf men have no romance. Someone remarks then Fleurit wants to interact with the people of Deserto. A young man suggests Fleurit live in a manor house room until she has a new plan. An older woman and an elf look surprised. The young man invites Fleurit to share stories about elves, the Great Valley, and magic. The older woman suggests the elf's magic could help the town and asks for her thoughts. The elf asks why she can't just say thank you. A young man exclaims great, and the elf notes if the feudal lord insists she can live in the manor house and that she knew the feudal lord was understanding. The elf then raises her hand. Fleurit waves at a boy who waves back. An older woman explains that touching palms is the elf's handshake. The boy and Fleurit touch palms, and he says it's nice to make her acquaintance. The next day, the great elf Fleurit becomes a citizen of the territory. A man asks to get her blessings, and she's shocked to hear Mr. Beard wants to live there too. A man explains the luggage was for moving, not a transaction. Another man defends a drunk but skilled dwarf, saying he should have gotten blessings first, and it's good they reunited and live in town. The boy listens, thoughtful. Cyan declares he'll welcome dwarves, certain townspeople will be glad to have them. A blindfolded man mentions the dwarf can fix things with earth magic, and Cyan questions his condition. Cyan asks if they can live in the abandoned north house, and the man thanks him. He asks if other dwarves can use as much magic as Mr. Godi. Another says he's only seen Godi's magic and is jealous of his earth magic, though he can't beat him in carpentry. He offers help from his dad or others if needed for letting Godi use the abandoned house. They explain most dwarves are capable of maybe half of Godi's magic, which is extraordinary even by dwarf standards, and even half is amazing. A bearded older man mutters he forgot about Tarjal, who he hears got along with his old man easily. A young man with a headband tells another Tarjal asked his dad for favors. Lugos leaves with a big smile, and a butler addresses the young master. The headbanded man waves goodbye as someone else waves back. The butler notes Mr. Beard will be a resident, and the other man reacts. The young man asks for submission paperwork, and the butler responds, making him exclaim, "Great timing." The young master in uniform signs documents with a butler beside him. He reflects on the town's tough start with no water and an epidemic, noting it's gradually prospering with dwarves and an elf as residents. He states he's enjoying the moment. Cyan smiles, declaring he loves working for the people's happiness as a feudal lord. Below, rocky peaks rise, and he thinks there's something completely unaware of on the other side of the Great Valley, a possibility of gaining new knowledge. The young man in uniform, pen in hand, exclaims that thinking about those things excites him. The older man behind him replies he's glad to hear it. The young man mentions his master showed him an adventurer's autobiography, beginning to share what it said. The older man starts to recall a memory from long ago. A character declares they want to be the first human to cross the Great Valley, a place even the kingdom hasn't entered, and there are infinite unreached places. They wonder how their master is doing. The garden of Birdry Mansion looms. A girl, headband framing her face, stands there, her voice soft with confusion. Even though she knew Mr. Cyan wouldn't be here, she couldn't help but come. She sighs, her hand to her chin, wondering what to do next. A girl confronts her father, shocked to learn her engagement to Mr. Cyan has been called off. Her father tells her the boy has been exiled to Erimo's territory. The scene is set at the Farrison residence a month prior. A girl with a headband stares wide-eyed, her expression one of shock. Below, a close-up of her eye is followed by the word exiled, in bold. A boy, mouth open in disbelief, asks what happened at the coming-of-age ceremony, muttering that the person exiled worked harder than anyone and respected the goddess more than all. A man with a mustache tells a girl he's breaking her engagement to Cyan, calling him a useless waste of a goddess power. He's found a new fiancé, the second son of the Trashes, who's wandering. The girl listens as he snaps his fingers, setting the wedding in 3 months. A man with a mustache tells a girl he's breaking her engagement to Cyan, calling him a useless waste of a goddess power. He's found a new fiancé, the second son of the Trashes, who's wandering. The girl listens as he snaps his fingers, setting the wedding in 3 months. The girl, left alone, looks distressed, wondering what to do with her life now that her engagement to Cyan is over. A girl with a headband, having snuck away from her father, stands lost in thought, muttering about how reminiscent the place is. A boy appears, calling out Mr. Cyan, and the girl looks up at him, her expression a mix of surprise and confusion. A hooded woman, Mortina, mocks the girl's distressed face, calling it beautiful. She introduces herself as a traveler, and the girl, wide-eyed, asks, "Are you?" Tarjal, with a pounding head, says it was a valuable experience. The boy with glasses, concerned, asks if he's okay. Tarjal burps, and the boy with glasses comments that dwarves are heavy drinkers, and he didn't have to drink more than his limit. A boy in a white shirt approaches, announcing he's there to pick up his father. A man in uniform turns, surprised, then exclaims, "Oh!" The boy's father, off-panel, introduces him as Calf. The father in uniform explains he's already postponed departure and can't wait for his trading partner, to which the boy in uniform remarks he's hungover and should wait a day. The bandaged boy thanks the other, who hands over hangover medicine, explaining Ms. Media brought it. The bandaged boy beams, eager to do business. The other grins, declaring he'll count on him to boost trading goods. A boy holds reins, looking surprised as another man says Calf is taking the rein. The man explains roads are maintained thanks to the boy, who clarifies he didn't mean that. The boy holds the reins firmly as the word hold appears. A boy on a carriage grips the reins as another stands nearby, calling "See you." The standing boy watches a carriage drive away, thinking they'll get home safely. He reacts with a start, exclaiming "Whoa," as another person beside him mutters "Amazing." A boy exclaims "Oh Delpon," as a man laughs, noting the boy scared him but controls a horse well for his age. The man says the boy loves horses and lives among them, so his claim must be true. The boy explains he heard hooves and checked. The man looks down a sandy road at a distant carriage, commenting the driver is skilled. The boy with a headband, having snuck away, approaches a man and says there was something he wanted to ask. He mentions hearing from Tarjal that traveling to and from the town via horse-drawn carriage is tough on the rough sand road. The man asks what it is, and the boy continues, noting that might be why other merchants don't come near the town. A panel shows a man struggling to push a horse-drawn cart. A boy with a headband asks a man if it's difficult for his horses to run through the desert. The man squats and explains the sand needs to be hardened like a paved road for speed, and it's impossible to run through the sands there. The boy nods, recalling his horse-drawn carriage was slow. A boy explains that over time, sand gathers and the trade route reverts, but they're paving it with magical plants. He asks Delpon to pick a healthy horse that bonds with people, mentioning he might borrow one soon to move swiftly on unpaved roads. Delpon grins and takes charge, promising to handle all horse-related matters. He stares at the desert road, thinking there's much to do before Tarjal's next visit in a month. Determined, he heads up the stairs, resolved to understand Furet's capabilities and go talk to her as planned. He pauses, surprised, as he finds the door open. Whispering for Furet, he rushes in, his voice filled with concern. A person lies on a bed, snoring, muttering, "I can't drink anymore." "Forgive me, but I'm going to drink anyway." A boy stands near barrels, then a uniformed boy opens a door, looking surprised. A boy shouts, "Come hurry," and LAFMME as he rushes in. A girl, Latham, stands calm, saying, "Please give me a moment." He grabs her, but she stays composed. Later, he asks if the room is clean, and she replies, "The room is all cleaned, young master." The boy bursts in, disturbing the girl in bed, who snaps, "You're disturbing my slumber." The maid, Lapham, stands by, and the boy mutters so loud. Lapham says it's nothing, and the boy thanks her, trusting she'll help. The girl looks annoyed, and the boy has a sweat drop. Lapham swats him with a cloth, making a F-whoosh sound, covering the girl. The boy apologizes, and Lapham says, "Ms. Furet." Furet, in bed, declares she'll sleep nude starting tomorrow and tasks the maid with her clothing, noting she shouldn't be underestimated. The maid stays composed. Later, the maid leaves, and Furet, holding a barrel, asks for her first cup of the day. The boy watching her thinks she's lost in her own world. Furet, annoyed, tells the boy to hurry as he wants to ask something first. He asks if she brought the alcohol barrels, and she confirms she did, not liking waste. The boy is surprised she brought them on her own. Furet uses magic to spin a barrel, surprising the boy, who asks if it's storage magic. Furet explains the barrels are empty and she stored them by mistake. The boy asks Furet how much she can store with her magic, noting nobles can only store small items. Furet admits she's never tested its limits, and the boy realizes her storage magic is stronger than noble blessings. Furet declares she's hidden 10 alcohol barrels before, and the boy mutters that hiding doesn't sound good. She argues traveling with big luggage is a beauty, and he snaps why she didn't store her things when she ran away. She wouldn't have dropped them. Furet demands Sabo ale, and he hands it over, thinking she's non-negotiable with her unique values. He asks what other magic besides ice she can use. She says she's not done yet. He mentions the barrels, confused. She states it's storage magic. He presses for more, and she admits ice and storage are the only ones she can use. He hums, thinking. The elf girl, with a dismissive tone, says she doesn't know about managing various magics. Someone mentions great elves can handle many magics, and she notes she read that in books. A boy holding a barrel insists he wants Sabo ale now, and the elf, crossing her arms, wonders if the books were wrong. The elf, suddenly excited, pours from the barrel, and the boy, sighing, agrees to give her a minute. The boy watches as the elf girl uses ice magic perfectly, freezing her mug. She exclaims "cold" at the frozen drink. Smiling with a sweat drop, she thinks of a great way to put her powerful magic to use for the town. Determined, she grabs a barrel, declaring the ale delicious and asking for one more, much to the boy's protest. The feudal lord asks what? Secret? The elf, with a determined look, says, "Fine. I will tell you my secret." The other person comments, "You are a talented negotiator, feudal lord." The elf pulls a cube, the sound of the action filling the air. The boy gapes, staring at a stack of boxes. What is this? The elf girl holds up the box, declaring it a prototype storage magic tool she made her secret. The boy, clutching the box, starts to speak, eyes wide with realization. The elf girl is asked if she can add magic. She explains normal elves use magic by borrowing sylphs' powers and can't add that power. The boy asks if all elves can do it, and she says no. The boy gapes, clutching a cube. What is this? Furet, with a determined look, explains great elves use their own powers, not borrowed ones. She adds it's still in testing. The boy lights up, asking if she can make ice magic tools too, calling her amazing. He grins, thinking of a magical tool of ice magic, then turns to Furet, asking her to make one. Furet looks at him, listening intently. Furet says understood. The boy, standing by the bed, listens. Furet crosses her arms, then declares she wishes for scheduled distribution of alcohol until she finishes. The boy smiles, agreeing. Furet, with a determined look, thinks the boy is in good arms. A short-haired character worries, "Can I count on her?" A maid stands nearby, then the character flops onto a bed with a soft sound. The maid looks up, a faint smile on her face, as the character lies still in silence. An elf-looking character stares up, muttering "That maid." Below, a maid in uniform pours tea, her expression thoughtful as she wonders, can she be